everybody, welcome to Frame Trap. It's nice because we're not actually shooting and posting this on the same day, so I feel like we have a little bit of breathing room, which is awesome. Yeah. At the end there, Daniel Bloodworth.
Hey.
How we doing? Right next to him is Brandon Jones.
Hey.
I was thinking about it, guys, before we got set up here. We have a lot going on this month in every sense.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like. And I don't know. Maybe it was just because I had less access to games, but I feel like there was a time where video games would be slow for a while throughout the year. That's not like something I'm imagining, right?
Right.
It did chill out sometimes.
I mean, technically, it has been slow through like the last half of December and beginning of January, but there's been so much else going on.
That's a good point. I felt like it was crazy in December, but that was just me trying to catch up for Game of the Year. That wasn't because there was actually a ton of new releases in December. Although Smash, any month that Smash comes out is a big
there's
month,
a lot of Smash, yeah.
So, yeah, have you been feeling that as well, or do you like kind of have your own personal months where it's like, no, there's nothing for me here?
I like that we had to turn down like 3 really great events in the middle of January. I was like, sorry, like we're not gonna have a studio then. We're not gonna be like there's just a lot going on. We can't do it. And that said, we're still going to a lot of events in January. But I think it's funny. I don't know if the schedule is changing that much. I just think I want to be a part of everything that's going on because this generation is just kicking so much ass right now that I think there are 2 big releases this month at the end of the month. They just happen to be these like just monumentally exciting games.
Right.
They're like both of them. You like once you have them in your hands, it's like I can't believe these exist. I can't believe I'm actually about to play this game right now.
Right.
So 2 of those in 1 month, like back to back, same day, right?
No,
or just
they're less than a week apart.
Though. Yeah, less than a week.
I've seen people say that they won't believe Kingdom Hearts 3 exists until they start playing it, and I believe that it exists, but I don't think the like full breadth of it existing will hit me until I start playing it. Like it's just something that's kind of filed into, oh yeah, this is coming. But like the minute I see Sora and Donald and Goofy on screen in my own home, not at like an event or something, I think that will have.
I think about that a lot with Red Dead. I try to keep my head in that space whenever I think about that game, because a lot of people talk about the ending like being really, or the beginning being really slow, and like even just like trudging through the snow as Arthur, I was like. I was just so excited. I can't believe I'm like about to embark on this journey I've been waiting for so long, and I think is going to be so much of what I want. Like it's just it's hard to kind of turn the electricity down.
You got me looking at birds now after that.
Well, that was after 100 hours, so yeah, that was a whole different story.
I actually think it's pretty hard sometimes to communicate our headspace with a game to the audience.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, Sekiro is coming out in a few months, and I feel no impulse to talk a lot about that game because I have so much confidence in it. And I feel like when you say that out loud, it makes almost no sense. It's just, I feel like a lot of the games that I'm most excited for, there's like a little tiny seed of doubt.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas something like Sekiro, it's like, no, based on Bloodborne, based on Dark Souls 3, but just based on years and years and years.
Tenchu, based on just so many stars are aligning.
Right.
For that
Where
game.
it's like, when that game comes, I bet we'll have, hours and hours and hours of things to say, but I just have nothing to really speculate over in a way that, I don't know. It's like I've just kind of like put it in its place, and it will come to life when it comes to life. But I think it can be confusing, and there's so much. Like on the last Frame Trap, we had a big list of games, and it was like, oh, hey, you didn't talk about Metro Exodus, and it's like, I can't wait to play Metro Exodus, but sometimes there's so many games coming that even something that I'm looking forward to, even something that we've talked about several times, you just completely lose it, and you feel guilty.
There's a game coming out in 3 months. It's just starting. I can sense it. They're chomping at the bit to like really start pushing their advertising because it's a game that's been delayed a bunch. And I'm just like, hush you. I'm not going to play you for 3 more months. Be quiet.
Yeah.
And that's Days Gone. It's just kind of fun. So they're like, remember, we're this year. And it's like, no, let me play RE2 first, and then we'll talk. I'm very excited for that. And I'm just trying not to think about it because it's 3 months.
Much of that's in C3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really a lot more to. There's no big crazy enemy types or weapons or anything. They know. They're like, we really we're gonna hit you with that big sentimental story trailer, like maybe throw in some characters you didn't know. But other than that, it's just like hit it hard, like the last couple weeks before it happens. Remind everybody.
Yeah.
And then if nobody was sold by then, they're not gonna.
I'm not sure I want a sentimental story trailer for Days Gone. I think we're okay without that.
It started that way, though. Like, the first thing we ever saw, I mean, not to turn this to a Days Gone segment, like, the first thing we ever saw was, like, him being like, I lost his girlfriend, his wife, his something, like, mother of his child, and, like, I don't know if he's, like, trying to do right by that or find information. I don't know. There seemed like, there's that. They're going to fill in that at some point. And then it's just been like, open world, motorcycles. Yeah. Your best friend's in trouble, that kind of stuff.
I also feel like with the increasing complexity of games and the way that a lot of games are being built, speculating too much before you get their hands on them doesn't do much good. So I think about like Anthem, for instance, where it's like, I'm not really going to know how I feel about Anthem until probably like a month after it comes out. Where it's like those first impressions will last a long time because that is how the game is going to be structured. And so it's like, other things I feel like you can play a little bit of and immediately get a sense of and have that feel accurate, whereas something like Anthem, I'd be hesitant to come down one way or another just because it's like, no, this is supposed to last me a long time.
Yeah. It's going to be a good year.
It is. It is going to be a good year. A lot of stuff coming out. We're going to talk about 2019 stuff and get further down the line, but we're going to talk about some video games first. And Blood, I'm so glad you're bringing this to Frame Trap because I've seen several comments. They're like, hey, please cover this. And I've wanted to cover it, but I just haven't played it yet. You've committed. You've played some of Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales.
Yeah. I'd say 3 or 4-ish hours last night.
Nice.
Around there.
You Witcher fan, Blood?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And so I think for some people it's probably a surprise that I hadn't played it yet because I did. I played the 3 Witcher games. I've read probably half-ish of the books, and it just timing was weird when Thronebreaker came out.
Yeah,
didn't get a chance to cover it, and it's an interesting kind of weird game because it basically. I was thinking about this because it's funny to make this comparison now because we couldn't have done it at launch. In a way, it's kind of like the World of Light of Gwent.
Sure.
So,
but I'm not sure how to process that.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So basically, like you have this whole map, this top-down map that you're pointing and clicking to navigate through, and there's little loop points and things like that, and conversations to have with people. But then, like when you get into battle, it's just a very modified game of Gwent. Which
is interesting because Gwent is a modified version of Gwent.
Right. Yeah. So you went from like the mini game that was in The Witcher to this like really crazy multiplayer game, which I haven't played since the first beta, so I know it's changed a lot on its own. And then Thronebreaker is its own completely different offshoot.
Yeah, so because of how much Gwent has evolved over time, do you feel like going into Thronebreaker, if you're somebody that is not that familiar with it at all, except like maybe let's say somebody played a little bit of Gwent in Witcher 3, do you feel like they're kind of on the back foot with Thronebreaker? Does it assume that you have that knowledge going in, or are the fights so individualized that it's pretty easy to jump into?
I think it does a pretty good job of doing, getting you into ground level. Like they have a lot of like early matches where they basically tell you like, okay, play this card now and it's going to do this, and play this card and it's going to do that. One of the things that's really took me a second because like it's so different that at first I'm like, what the heck am I doing again? Because it for one, Gwent, it has 3 lanes on each side. And so far in Thronebreaker, I'm just dealing with 2 lanes. And a lot of I just don't feel like I'm using a lot of the same strategies. Like there is that sense of like, okay, you win a round by having like a higher number on your side than the other player, but there's all this other stuff that's going on. And like, again, going back to the World of Light comparison, you get into these story-based situations where, okay, well, here's some specialty cards that you don't normally have in your deck. And there are what they call puzzle battles, which most of them have been optional, but I think there might have been one or two that have been like required. But there's a lot. That's one thing too. There's a lot of off the beaten path stuff to where like I don't even know like how much you could just skip through to play this game. But with these puzzle battles, they're so far all the ones I've done have been one round, and it's basically about like using this very limited set of cards to accomplish a very specific goal, like getting all of the enemies down to like 1 health. And so I've got 4 or 5 cards maybe, and I've got to play this there, and then I've got to play this after that, and if I'm not careful, like they'll take out all my guys. And that was one of the conditions too of one of them was like, yeah, you've got to kill all of these drowners without any of your cards getting killed. And it's like, okay, what's the combination that makes this work? And there's another one where I had to I didn't have enough. It was weird because I couldn't deal enough damage with my cards to do it like just throwing the cards down the basic way. But the way one of the cards works is it gets more strength when you put a card down. So it's like if I put a card, like if you have like 4 cards on the field, then like it'll have 4 strength and it can do 4 damage. But I didn't have enough cards to get up to the 6 damage or 8 damage or whatever I needed. But what you could do is those cards, some of those cards could move, change lanes. And so when you change lanes, that card would keep its strength. So you basically like just like cheese it in a way, but it's like part of the puzzle. You have to do that. So like you take the cards out of that lane, and then you use another card to give them the ability to go back into the first lane, and then you get that strength up. So there's a lot of stuff in there to like really make you think about combining these card abilities in ways that just wouldn't necessarily occur naturally.
Sure.
So that you can like take that into other situations.
One of my least favorite things in card games, and it's unavoidable, it's part of their nature, is when you just draw things in the worst possible order, where your deck is supposed to work a certain way, and the way that you're drawing it is just not facilitating that process. In Thronebreaker, because it's single player, and for these puzzle-based things, are you drawing your cards in the same order every time, or is it randomized?
So the puzzle ones are pretty specific. I think that's the thing is like you have these cards, use them.
Okay.
You know,
so that is not coming down to
the order that's
luck.
going to make sense. Yeah.
Right.
And then I think I'm still too early for the deck build to make that much of a difference either, because I'm pretty limited. Like I can't put any more cards into my deck, and so it's really just about rearranging like the number of archers I have, or the number of pikemen or whatever.
So as you're going through these puzzles and as you're doing these battles with other people, what is the story that is going on amidst all that stuff?
Yeah, so it's not involving Geralt at all at the moment. You're playing as Queen Meve, who is from the books, and she is the queen of Lyria and Rivia. And so in the books, this is basically where Geralt of Rivia becomes like a real thing. I forget the context of why he called himself that before, but it was like illegitimate. It was just like one of these things that like he had to like come up with to like say who he was in court. It's like, okay, Geralt of Rivia, whatever. I know there's more of a story to it than that. I'm just like off the top of my head, there was a bogus reason for that. And then as fate would have it, he ended up assisting the queen, and then he became actually, officially Geralt of Rivia. But anyway, so she's coming back into the country after, like meeting and forming an alliance with some other rulers of the northern kingdoms, and there are things have just gone wrong while she's away, and so there's bandits about, there's monsters about, and she's kind of working her way through the kingdom and mopping things up as she goes, and she's wearing gold armor. She doesn't like take any nonsense from anybody. One of the noblemen in your party when somebody tells you about like this monster in the cemetery, and one of the noblemen is like, well, we gotta go hire a witcher, and it's like, we don't have time for that. Some archers are gonna have to do. It's like, okay. So so she's been a pretty interesting character so far, and everything's kind of presented in sort of that motion comic style that you see in some of the Witcher cutscenes.
Yep.
And so they take several different approaches to how the storytelling is. Some of it is just on that overworld map, which is presented in a cel-shaded style that kind of mimics that same look. Others are more like directly that motion comic sense, so it's like a full cutscene with a lot of focus movements and things like that. Others are character models that are cel-shaded, having a conversation, and then some are just like practically like a page out of the book, full on with like a narrator saying like, and then Queen Meeb said blah 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 blah.
Oh wow!
But then there's like a lot of like almost like a radio play, like a lot of background noises and things going on there. There's also a camp screen where you kind of manage a lot of your deck and thing, and everything's contextualized. So your deck is your army. And
Camps were big in 2018, I think.
Yeah, I love camps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a workshop where you can kind of build up the different abilities and structures that you have in your camp, and then you have kind of a command tent where you organize your troops and basically use resources to create new cards and then put those cards into your deck based on things that you've gotten in the story. I've done some like side quests. You get like treasure maps and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I found both some cards that are like special cards for the Gwent multiplayer game that you can only get from Thronebreaker.
I want to interject.
That's
there.
really
like,
interesting.
I know this seems very anti-CD Projekt, but like there's no packs or anything. There's no microtransactions or.
Not in the single player game so far.
Right,
no.
yeah, you get it and then you unlock all of your stuff through that.
But the only way to
That's
get
refreshing.
some of those cards for Gwent is to play Thronebreaker.
I think so. I mean, either that or they're rare in Gwent, and you just Thronebreaker's an easier way to get them.
That kind of reminds me of Hearthstone with their campaigns that they would do. You know, like you would have to finish the campaign to unlock that cool card that you could then put. I mean, granted, it's within the same game, but.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting that I found kind of out there on the map are there's card fragments. So like literally it'll be like a ripped card.
Cool.
So like you'll get one corner and then later on I found like another side. So it looks like there's like 3 pieces to assemble this one card, which looks like one of the horns that kind of boosts, like your whole party. So that'll be a pretty useful card down the line.
Blood, sometimes in RPGs where I can craft things, occasionally I'll get into the mode where it's like, all right, I need this many material. I'm not moving on until I just grind out those materials and can make everything that I want to make, and then I'll move on. Can you do that in Thronebreaker? Like, let's say there are cards you want to craft? I don't think so.
There seems to be a very limited amount of resources.
So you can't replay missions or...
Right.
Okay.
There is a training tent in the camp where you can do practice battles, but I don't think you can get resources by doing that.
Okay.
There's also a mess tent where you can go in and I think at different points in the story, different characters will be in there that you can have conversations with, side conversations.
That's nice.
But yeah, there's a lot of little hidden ways to get resources. Like I went to this town and just kept clicking on this one old man who's like, nobody ever talks to me that much. Here, I'll contribute to the war effort, and
I love that.
And there are points where like this temple gets robbed by bandits and you have these choices. It's like, okay, do you give the loot back to the priestesses, or do you keep that money for yourself and use it for your resources?
So let's say you give it back to the priestesses. Does that offer you another reward? You
do get some other reward there. One of the things too that I'm not entirely sure I completely understand yet is that there's also there's a morale system. And so there are different points where you can raise morale or where your actions will lower morale. And even if you have raised morale, once you go into a battle, it only lasts for that battle. And after the battle, it'll be back to neutral.
Gotcha.
So you can't constantly be on raised morale all the time unless you find new ways to raise it.
Blood from an outside perspective, Thronebreaker, just to me, seems like it hasn't really kicked up a lot of attention.
Right.
Where I feel like the people that have gone and played it have had really positive things to say about it and it reviewed really well, but it didn't seem to catch on in a huge way. Do you think maybe that's because before this you had multiplayer Gwent and maybe people are struggling to distinguish between the two, or maybe they had their fill of Gwent? Like, do you think what would you think the reasoning behind that would be?
I must confess, I did not know Thronebreaker was Gwent. I thought it was a weird strategy game. I thought it was like an adventure game kind of. I really didn't know.
I do think that making it, like giving it a different title and making it a different game has kind of, I think it has thrown some people off. And sort of, it's weird. In a way, it almost makes it feel like less of a big deal.
Sure.
Perceptually. But it does sort of make sense because, originally it was just considered one package. Like, okay, we're gonna have this, multiplayer experience and single player experience. But I think at whatever point they decided to make Gwent a free to play game with all these microtransactions and everything, it's like, well, we don't want that to interfere with, what the single player story is meant to be. So.
And I love that it's another character. I love how, like, obviously, deep the world of The Witcher is, and they're choosing to focus on like a different era, something that hasn't been retreaded in the story. So it's like, it's fun.
Yeah, cool. It's been interesting. I'm in a weird spot right now where I've started like 6 different games, so it's like, which thing do I actually get all the way down the rabbit hole with first? But and I think the other thing too is I think that there's this just a weird perception in card games in general, to where they just don't feel like as big of a deal. And so to me, like even this situation, it's like, okay, now this is the point where I need to force myself to play Thronebreaker. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I don't know why I didn't, install this sooner.
Yeah, I don't know if I guess I would use the phrase doesn't feel as big of a deal, but there definitely has been pretty intense saturation with that. I mean, obviously you have things like Hearthstone that have been continually updated, but you have a ton of things that have came after that. You have Gwent, you have Duelist, you have Shadowverse, all with their own ecosystems, all, if you want to get into them, requiring a pretty hefty investment. Like, it's so saturated that you'll forget one of the major ones in there, and then 5 seconds later you'll be like, oh right, also the Elder Scrolls trading card game,
Artifact.
Yeah, right. And there was just an article being like, hey, Artifact isn't,
I read that,
really retaining players. And it's weird because I was on this podcast talking about Artifact, and I was like, I had a lot of fun with it. It's a very interesting game, but I think just as a player, even if something is good, really, really good, if you've had a similar experience a lot in the last couple of years, it just doesn't stick with you as hard. I just don't, like, I don't know. I think about Hearthstone and how much personally I invested in that, and the amount of time it took and the commitment it took to really kind of do it in the way that I wanted to do it. And it's not that that's a bad thing or a knock against the game, but you can't do that all the time for every new game. I think just you kind of need a break. I can imagine like maybe months from now or a year from now or 2 years from now or some, indiscriminate time from now, I might want to do that again. But I think just mentally you get oversaturated with that stuff.
I think also, like, just speaking from my experience with Amanda, because Amanda's, from the millisecond I introduced her to Hearthstone, never ever stopped playing. Like, she plays every morning. She gets up and breaks out her iPad and plays a little bit. And she's not like, really getting crazy with strategies or something. She just likes to just play it and continue with the content updates that they do. And I think from her perspective, if you have people that love the genre but aren't necessarily obsessed with it, introducing something new is not like, that's not doing enough for me to change. It's like, I'm not just going to change because I'm fine. I got this game I really like, and it's good. I don't need to like fix what isn't necessarily broken by moving to another game. And so I wonder if there's a lot of people that are just like, I'm just not going to make that jump because this hasn't bored me yet. Because I've figured out how much I need to include this game in my life, and it's just enough.
Yeah, I think what is kind of weird, though, is a lot of games are kind of being objectivized in the same exact way, where like I would with Hearthstone and be like, well, I'm just going to do my dailies and get my gold, but then I would play so many games that had dailies, some small objective, and it's like, okay, I'm interested in these different genres and these different games, and they all have their own little objectives, and they're really easy and straightforward on their own. But when it's like, oh man, I got to do all of my dailies in these 3 or 4 games, then it starts to feel a little bit like a task. And I realize that that's probably not a problem for everybody. I'm sure a lot of people, have their one game, pick their one game. But I would be curious about something, or I check something out and be like, this is another thing that has some sort of time-based objective to add onto the list.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing too that can be intimidating or keep people from wanting to jump into most card games is, again, with the multiplayer aspect and the collectible aspect, they're constantly changing. And so like with me, with Gwent, it's like, I was really into this in the first beta, and a couple months later it's like, well, that's a completely different game that I have to learn all over again now.
Right.
So I think in a way Thronebreaker kind of dodges that, but I don't know if people realize it dodges that, because this is a set game. This isn't going to be like mixing it up all the time. It's like you go in, you play the story, you learn how the cards work, and you learn to take advantage of that. And then if you're into Gwent, you get some bonuses on the side.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I really appreciate when these multiplayer-focused things are able to tackle both parts very, very effectively. And dodging that bullet, you're so right, Blood, because listening to the Hearthstone team talk about it, they're like, okay, these core cards we really don't want to change, because if you're a player and you don't play for 6 months or a year, whatever it is, and you come back and we've changed Fireball, that might really throw you off. That might alienate you in a way where this feels like a different game and you don't have that attachment to it. And so you need enough things to kind of stay the same, so when people come back, they have some knowledge that they're working off. They have some base. It's not completely destroyed. And I find that to be really tough as a designer. Like, I don't envy that position, because then you have other people who are playing every single day. They're very up on everything that's going on in the meta, and things feel stale. And so it's just threading this needle in a way where it's constantly changing and it's impossible to please everyone, and it just seems like a monumental task for sure. But it's cool that Amanda's still playing, that she's like kind of found that and is still going. Is that still Fortnite for you, Brandon? Is that kind of your, I'm going to keep checking in on this game?
Honestly, you know what that game is for me is Galaxy of Heroes at Star Wars
nice.
RPG. Because Fortnite, I dipped half of this year, of this 2018, I didn't play Fortnite at all. And that wasn't because it was not satisfying me. I just had other games to play, and it's still in early access, so it's still I still get that vibe where they're like, we're not there yet. So I'm like, okay, cool. They're still adding stuff, and I'm not obsessed with Battle Royale, and so I'll get back to that. But Galaxy of Heroes every morning without fail.
Is that,
and to your point with the other card games, like a DC one came out in 2017, a Marvel one came out last year, same format.
I didn't even know that.
And the Marvel one, Huber started a guild and then just bailed on the he never plays it anymore.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't play it either, but we're both in this guild, unfortunately, and I'm sure there's a lot of really dedicated allies that are keeping that guild going. But I tried, because I was actually more into Marvel than DC for some strange reason, because there's just Marvel's so exciting right now, and so I was really into unlocking Punisher and Daredevil and Spider-Man, and I couldn't do it. I was I would do both every morning, and when you said dailies, I was like, yeah, that's what really killed me. I'm like,
right.
I can't. Even though the game is automated, and most of the time I'm just working and all the fights are happening automatically, it's like I can't get back into that. But Star Wars, they just added C-3PO in a special event, but my Ewok team wasn't up to snuff, and I couldn't unlock him, so I gotta wait till he comes back around.
So is that why you stuck with Galaxy Heroes, just because it is Star Wars and that's so core to you?
Yeah, I just love the cast. I just love unlocking them, and it's neat. When it first came out, was one of the first big events that they had tying into the movies was Rogue One. And so they would throw out Rogue One characters, and I was like, who's Bistan? Okay. And then I go see Rogue One, and I'm like, Bistan! And he's in a ship, he gets a cameo 5 seconds. I'm like, I know who that is, it's cool. Then I'm introduced to these characters. It was neat seeing Rebels, and then I got my Rebels team together. Mm-hmm. And even at Disney Infinity, they were just we're not gonna make a Chopper figure. It's oh, come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did a good job.
It was funny. My girlfriend and I were playing Kingdom Hearts 1, and there's some emoji Disney game that she plays, and she's like she played Plants vs. Zombies 1 and 2 for like 4 years, and that was it. That was all she played, but she went so hard on those 2 games, and so she kind of has this one mobile game in rotation. It's this Disney emoji game, and she got really excited because she was like, "Oh, look! In this game, they put Keyblades in here." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Just something that kind of ties these two different things together. Brandon, along with Star Wars, you have another. I don't know. Maybe vice is too hard of a word.
I'll accept it. I'll own it.
Open worlds. Yeah. You've been playing a lot of, for a long time, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah, primarily the last month. I mean, it was right before the holidays. And I know it's like the worst place to get into, like 3-4 months after a game comes out, to be like, Odyssey, you guys, and like, yeah, no, that ship sailed. Like we're done with that conversation. Like I really am late to the party. Not only I think with Odyssey, but just Assassin's Creed. Like I did not touch Origins at all. Even I think I demoed it at E3 for 5 seconds, and got to play this past E3. Got to play Odyssey in a couple different parts, and got to play both characters, and thought it was really interesting. And you got the ships. I love Black Flag so much. I'm like, there's a lot here that's attractive, but this game just looks really deep. And Just Cause 4 is coming out, and it's right in between Red Dead and other Spider-Man, and like there's a lot going on in open worlds in 2018. I don't know if I'll commit to this really. And then over the holidays, I was like, I really want to put enough into this. I don't think it's going to beat Spider-Man or Red Dead when it comes to awards, but I want to be able to talk about it as someone who's infatuated with open worlds. And then I just played too much of it. And I got bit and was like, oh no, I'm going to have to just, do everything.
Where was the bit point?
I don't know. I think it was about 10 or 12 hours. So I was like, oh no. I think it was like the cult. And Cultist is kind of a spoiler thing, but I do want to get into it because one of the things that I think they do a great job of in Odyssey is kind of crisscrossing a lot of the systems. Mm-hmm. So like even doing a side quest, I would bump into a cultist and be like, oh, this is actually relevant. I needed to find this person. Or I love when they do, this is something I think was a little bit of last gen, and like RPGs and a lot of open world games are getting smart and adding where Cassandra will walk up to someone and they're like, I need you to go rescue my friend. And she's like, I did. And they're like, oh, whoa. She's like, I hit that fort on the way over here, and I just happened to already do that for you. Here's that item.
Accidentally crossing off multiple things in any game is the best. But I don't know why. But
when they started to add that, now it's to the point where they're actually writing in dialogue of her being like, how fortuitous, you know? And so it's fun to like see scenes play out that way. And it's when I really started to get a sense of like how big that game really was. And the story I really got into. Like, it's all very personal and not in a way where, because it can be kind of tiring. You play a lot of JRPGs, and I'm sure it's just like, you are the most important person in the world. And you're like, that's exciting, but at the same time also, like I've played so many games that do that. And they had a great balance of like, Cassandra is very important, or Alexios if you choose Alexios, but not in a way that's like, only you can do this, in a way that really makes you feel empowered. Like, no, I want to get revenge on these people, and I want to set things straight, and even just a power trip. Like, I just want to hunt these people down and take them out. Yeah. But I like, Odyssey is big in a way I can only really compare to like Ghost Recon. That like when I first booted up the Wildlands map, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I don't know if I have time for all this stuff. All I see is just these big circles of all of these characters that they're asking me to take out. This just seems ridiculous. And then by the end of it, when I had cleared that map, any one of those characters you could point at, I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy. Like I remember that. I remember how I took that person down, what that person's area was like, what the story was like leading up to that. I looked at the Odyssey map and I was just like, islands. All I see is islands. And then now I look back and you point an island. It's like, that's the pirate island. You look back, it's like, that's the island with the volcano on it. Like, I remember just saying that now. I remember an island that didn't have anything. I wonder if it's DLC or just nothing going on there. And it seemed like, I think I'm going to come back here, and I never did. And just the sense of, it seems like the first big step that I feel has to have been influenced by Breath of the Wild. Like, it felt like a big budget, not that Breath of the Wild wasn't big budget, but like a photorealistic, or attempted to be, much more of a story-focused thing. So it's not just like, oh, I got a leaf, I can get more inventory space. It's like, no, there's like a whole camp of stuff and NPCs and quests, intermingling that. And just the fact that you can climb anywhere, just like the conquest style of that mode, or of that game, of just one more, fast travel point. Just one, there's a question mark just on the other side of that hill. Let me go get to it. There's not a lot of open world games I've played. Just Cause 4 certainly didn't do that in me. Like, and they really tried. Like, Just Cause 4 really tried to be clever with how you take over the map. It really feels like you're building an army and trying to take it over.
One thing they changed.
I just couldn't stop just going and going in that game.
I forget what they call it. There's like Explorer mode is a difficulty.
Did not do that at all.
Oh.
Just because I didn't have a lot of time. I was like, I want to get through this game as fast as I can. Play as much of it before Goaties. But that's just like that you have to ask, which brings me to one of my critiques, but like that you have to ask people line by line, where is this thing? How can I find it? What does this person look like? And then they'll give you more information, and then that helps narrow it down, and then you bring up your Falcon and then hone in, and there's that person. Whereas I was like, no, please tell me where it is. I don't have time to go on like an Easter egg for every single side quest.
You talk about kind of the conquest nature of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and how you're enjoying that. For me, last year, two very different experiences, Spider-Man and Red Dead Redemption 2, where I went and I wanted to do as much as possible in Spider-Man's world just because getting to the point was just usually as enjoyable or relatively enjoyable compared to the activity itself, where there would be times in Red Dead where I was like, I'm enjoying the side stuff that I'm doing, but sometimes I'm like, man, getting to that point is just going to take forever. It would... There would just be times I wouldn't want to make that trek.
Yes.
How do you feel Odyssey handles that? Is it pretty smooth getting around? Can you check those things off quickly when you want to?
It was funny when I first played Odyssey, it felt like I like hit the gas because like if you just move the analog stick in Red Dead, you have like a nice saunter, and then like you have to tap, hold down X to kind of jog and then tap to sprint.
Right.
And in Red Dead or in Odyssey, you're sprinting. Like you forward the analog stick and she just runs. And so I was like, whoa, this is a different, just it was a whole different vibe, just kind of walking through a Western town and then just kind of sprinting and shoving people aside. Like I got to get to that fast travel spot. And then once you do activate fast travel, like when I first started to hit those islands, it was really fun. Like telling the boat to dock, being able to jump off of the boat before it even finished docking, swim to shore, run up to that fast travel point, and then like fast travel back down to the dock or another dock that was closest to the next island and skip around. That was part of the reason why I got so addicted to it, is because of how easy it was to manage everything. And initially, like, it's so stupid to get hung up on aesthetics, but I enjoy the pirate galleon ship design so much more than the flat kind of like ram hammer design of the Greek boats. And so like initially I got kind of turned off. I was like, I don't know how into my ship I'll get. And then again, 10 hours later, I'm like, I love this ship so much. I'd get like a new ship design from some quest and be like, no, I don't like it. Like my floor is blue now? No. But just, taking that boat out and having the big improvement from Black Flag is like a lot of, ports that you went into, like, it was like, okay, cutscene, now loading this new area, and how everything was completely smooth. You could just bail on your ship at any time, summon it to new locations, but it would still remember, like, you left your ship here, it's technically there.
Yeah.
You can, like, port it over to where you're at. But that being said, just to be a little critical of Odyssey, I think, and especially after playing Red Dead and Spider-Man, because I was so quick to like skip through everything, you would have your introduction that like a lot of them were very random, of just like, hi, I'm a mercenary. Do you need help? It was like, okay, maybe a little smoother transition into like why she would just randomly talk to this person pacing back and forth in front of this building. But a lot of them would be like, do you have a problem? Here's my problem. Okay, I'll go do it. And then there were those, 3 or 4 white questions where it's like, I need more information before I go do the thing. And then the yellow question at the bottom, which was typically like, all right, I have all the information I need, I'm out. And I would 99% of the time skip to that question because I'm like, I don't care, I don't need the details. And almost always that line of dialogue indicated that we had just had a long conversation.
Yeah.
So it was like, cool, go get your brother. And then like, I'll be like, okay, cool, I'm out. And then she's like, thank you for the information. I'll go get your brother. And it's like, yeah, that didn't work. And like, it's like, so it seemed like they wrote a long script and then just expected me to read it all. And then like the last line was indicative of that. And it's like, I would, smooth that out if you really want to go with this, the multi-branching conversation decision-making process. That felt a little rigid. A lot of loading time too in conversation. And so like that was just kind of not done well.
I wonder if we can get to a point where we don't have to do it that way or lean on it so heavily where it's like okay, you have to go to this person. They're going to stand in this spot. You're going to stand in front of them, and you're going to talk until you get the objective. I wonder if we can eventually move toward more like you arrive at this place, and you just kind of overhear things, and the quest just slowly starts filling out, or you observe something, and you just choose to act. It's not just so much do this. Just, I don't know, maybe a little bit more natural, I suppose.
And, I'll never stop tooting that Red Dead horn anytime I can. I'll be like, well, Red Dead.
Yeah.
Tipping my cowboy hat. But like, I loved when I would be selling something to the any vendor, and then while I'm just going through the menu, like going through my inventory, they'll be like, oh, hey, did you hear this guy was looking for help? Or I heard that guy is selling some item or something. You're like, oh, cool. Way to take advantage of an amount of time that I'm not listening to anybody and doing something else to slip in a little bit of lore and conversations and stuff. So
it's funny how much your current situation and headspace influences how you play open world games, because I remember when I first got Red Dead, it was like, oh man, I'm loving how long everything takes. Like, let me just bask in it, let me soak in it. Yeah. And then as we got to December, and it's like, oh, there are a lot of games I want to play before Game of the Year. It just completely changed how I approached that world and how I felt about it.
I love Ian just posted in Slack, end credits finally, and didn't say what game it was, but we all knew. Right. No context needed.
And it's not necessarily like always a criticism of the game. It just, depending on how you feel, how crunched for time you are, that stuff will hit you harder or not. And
sometimes like a theme in a game, I realize it can be very silly sometimes, but like sometimes for me, like I really get into the theme of a game, and so I'll forgive a lot of things because I feel it fits that theme.
Yes.
And that's a lot of like why I love open worlds, is because I get a sense like I'm really here. Like a lot of barriers that are present in other games that I even felt in something like God of War that was so magnificent, but I was still like, it's kind of rigid. And I would go back to Freya's house and like, door's locked, she's gone. Like go back, wait till you get to that point in the story, and it's just I can't even knock. Come on. So that's why I like open worlds, because they have to correct or account for a lot of that stuff. The fact that it's called Odyssey, the fact that it's like pseudo based on a very large work of literature, I kind of was into the fact that it was just insanely huge, and so I know a lot of people like even Sean Clinton, my trainer, German Efficiency, who loves Assassin's Creed and played Origins. Like Odyssey was so close to Origins that he's like, I kind of got a little turned off by just how much there was to do. But like the fact that you begin, it takes 3 hours to get to the opening credits, and it clearly like the story sets up this huge, like there's a lot to do. It takes like even 10, 15 past that to really get going. And I know a lot of times like people hear like, oh, if at 15 hours it really starts picking up, and it's like, oh, come on. But for something like Odyssey, it's like, I just think it fits. I think it was clear that Ubisoft was like, this one's going to be real big because it's Greece, it's this area, it's all of these, it's Sparta versus Athens, it's all these mythological monsters. There's just a lot here that naturally speaks to a sense of grandeur that I think they pulled off in that game, and I was happy to just keep going and keep going.
I'm just curious, just because I think about 2018, and you went into Far Cry 5 and you did all of the DLC, and you played a lot of that in a very short amount of time, and then you did Spider-Man and you did all the DLC, and you played that in a very short amount of time. Then you did Red Dead, and then you did Red Dead Online, and now you're doing Odyssey.
Just Cause 4.
And didn't even think about Just Cause 4. So I'm just thinking about I'm just thinking about where you are now in Odyssey. By the time you get to the end, are you going to want to jump into the DLC that's coming out?
I'm not exactly sure. I haven't really been paying attention to what it is and how it's structured and what else is coming. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of want to wait for like when that like Game of the Year edition comes out in like the summer or something, where they're like, oh, the DLC is included. Then it's like, oh, they're done? Okay. And then I'll go back.
Okay, so you're not going to you're going to wait until it's all out.
And it's also nice that like it's not only a question of like putting so many hours into something, it's so many consecutive hours. Like there were a couple of days over the holidays where like I woke up, played Odyssey, ate lunch, played Odyssey, ate dinner, played Odyssey, played Odyssey, went to bed. And then, so it's like I need to just distance myself from that, just how like, it controlled everything. I wasn't playing anything else but this one game. It's kind of nice to sunset it and then come back later and be like, oh yeah, this game's real good.
I had that feeling with Smash most recently, where there would just be a couple of days where I was like, wow, that was that was my whole day. I can't keep doing this. I have to. You're right. You just have to distance yourself from it a little bit.
And we talked about it in our deliberations. Just final little button on Odyssey, but Cassandra's fantastic. Really,
Nice.
really great character. From what I've seen of Alexios, like seems kind of more traditional in. Reminds me a lot more of protagonists I've played in the Assassin's Creed series, whereas like Cassandra was so fresh and so, being a woman just offered so many interesting. Her relationship with her mother, I think, was defined differently. Her being kind of spurned by Sparta early in her life, I think, had a different tone to it with her being a woman as opposed to being, the Spartan boy, like the classic image hoisted up over the cliff.
Yeah.
It was neat to see how she fit in to that, especially with. Spoilers, other characters that were revealed and other stuff happened in the story later on.
Cool. I feel like for me, Odyssey is that game that is just in the back burner, and if there is an opening, which not looking good at the moment,
right,
then I want to take that dive.
Just know from someone who has not played Assassin's Creed in a long time.
Yeah.
Origins was the last one I finished. Coming back in.
Wait.
I think,
that's pretty good.
No,
compared to
Origins.
I was gonna say
Syndicate?
I play.
No, not Syndicate.
Unity?
France. Unity. There it is.
The way you said that is like I haven't played Assassin's Creed
Since Origins.
Origins, yeah.
But boy, it's been a long gen for Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
I think the series is in a great place. I'm
Cool.
looking forward to whatever they do for the next one. All the Animus stuff is kind of like whatever, but it's confusing. It was neat, but like I couldn't tell you what's going on. I couldn't. A lot of big things happened in the Animus world in Odyssey, and I have little purchase on it.
It's so heartbreaking to hear that because through Revelations, I was really invested in Assassin's Creed, and 3 just wrecked everything for me. And it wrecked it so hard that I just wasn't, like I would play it, I would have an okay time, but I wasn't really invested. Like my heart wasn't attached to it in the way that I wanted it to be, that it used to be. And Odyssey definitely got really, really close to that. And I just feel like if I gave it another 10, 20 hours, I definitely would have been there. And so it is frustrating because what I played I did enjoy so much. It's just other games.
It's in a good place. Brad and Huber don't like the combat. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's fun. I think it's easy for them, but like again, like being this powerful character, being in this world of Odyssey, like I kind of like being a god almost. Like I like being able to just destroy a camp. Especially when you get near the end and I'm level capped. I love just being able to walk in. There's 10 enemies and like, let's do it. It's fun.
I like that.
Fun game to beat.
I like that response. I have to bring down the vibes a little bit here. I reviewed a game that I was super looking forward to. I was optimistic about it. I didn't know exactly what to think, but I was going in with an open mind and an open heart. I like Suda51 a lot. He's impressed me in a lot of different ways over the years, and Travis Strikes Again with him back in a directorial role. I thought that was a very encouraging sign. That it has to be just one of the most inconsistent games I've ever played, where like there's bits of goodness, and those bits of goodness give you a lot of hope. But it's a game where I think by the time you finish it, you just kind of take a step back and you really don't feel like you walked away with something. And I don't mean that it has to be this super emotional response or anything. I don't think it has to tug at your heartstrings. I'm just saying like just kind of what even was that? And not in because he's obviously going for some shock. He's going for some weirdness, but some of that shock and weirdness doesn't even really feel like it has much of a purpose or much of an inspiration behind it. It's just kind of like the game is doing all of these different things and you're not sure why. Like you're not sure where the point is. And just before I reviewed Travis Strikes Again, I was playing some No More Heroes 2. I was just kind of dipping back into it for a little bit. And that game feels like everything kind of comes together. It has a focus, it has a vision, and it's simple. Like the premise for it is simple, but all of the aesthetic decisions that it's making, the way the gameplay pans out, the way that the things that you do between fights, they all make sense. It's like in Travis Strikes Again, you kind of do the first stage, and it's this very kind of pulled back, very simple, arcadey kind of brawler combat where you have a light attack, a heavy attack, you have some skills, and you're just kind of burning through enemies. And it does this thing where you'll go a little bit. There will be these walls that appear out of nowhere. You are in a video game, and so I guess you can kind of contextualize it like, oh, these things are creating these digital walls and preventing you from moving forward. But I think the point still stands where like it creates these, it blocks, you walk a little ways, it blocks you off, you fight, you walk a little more, it blocks you off, you fight, and it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, if that's how I'm going to be moving through your game, the combat has to be so good that this is interesting for hours. And it's not. Like, it feels like it's kind of fighting with itself, where it's like, this is super simple, and being super simple is fine, but you have to have other ways of making that worthwhile. And Brandon, you and I played it just a tiny little bit, and I think even you got that sense.
And I cut the review.
And you cut the review.
Mm-hmm. And just something to add from the perspective of, and I love sitting down in conversations like this, like for Thronebreaker, like I don't even know what that game looks like. Like I've seen images of the character art, and I can kind of picture it in my head, but I think that's one of the issues is sometimes a game like that just naturally passes under my eyeballs, and I get kind of a sense of it. I'm glad that I cut this review so I could be here for this conversation. I feel bad as an editor, because whenever I edit a review, I always want to make it really entertaining, even if the game is bad. Right. And sometimes, like Ian did a great job with Fallout 76, where he found really fun moments to illustrate the frustrations that you were having, sound ups that helped bring some levity to your clearly frustrated script. And there was just a point with the Travis reviewer, I'm like, this is just a dull video. There's nothing I can do. Like, I'm trying here, but just the music was just kind of repetitive. And they were like, I think there was one, whatever level you're in the desert, there was like one big 10-minute clip, and I think I got like two shots out of it, or two, like one bit. I was like, I can't show this again because it's the same thing.
It's the same thing,
you know. And like, I want to spice this review up, but there's nothing. Right. And my first thought is like, well, maybe Ben didn't capture it, and I'm like, no, I think it's just not there.
Right.
I want that variety, and I would expect that in something that's really weird like this. I would expect you to be constantly surprised. Even like that one Tron area where you were on the bike, I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And then like I watched the clip, I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Just not a lot going on here. And
I feel like the game kind of sets you up in a way where you start really feeling that repetition, and it brings you down, and then it will show you something. You're like, this is it. This is the moment where it changes.
We made it.
Right, and then it just dumps that immediately and throws you right back into what you were doing. And there are a couple of good examples of this. So you're going through these different games, and in the second game you go into, there's this pretty great, very cheeky, like kind of B-horror movie live action video. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to add a lot more humor in this game in comparison to the first one. It's going to have a completely different style. And then you get in there, and outside of like this very light puzzle element of like moving these tiles and these roads together, you get in these houses and you're just doing the same thing. You're stuck in these very tiny rooms fighting these enemies. Or the bike. You're talking about the bike and the racing. When I did that, I was like, oh, there's something here. Like there's some changing these gears at the right time in order to beat this race. That's new. That's different. That's a little bit fresh. And I was very grateful to it. And then after winning the first race, I did the second one. It was like, oh, this seems impossible. And the game's like, you have to go collect a part to upgrade your bike. And it's like, we're going to throw you into these tiny rooms where you can't move and you have to fight everything. And so you're doing way more of that than you are the racing. Yeah. And it just, it's disappointing. It just doesn't feel like there's enough in there. And that applies to the storytelling as well. And so in between kind of these games that you're traveling to and doing this stuff in, there's a connecting story, and it's called Travis Strikes Back. And it's this old-style visual novel, and it looks really charming, and it has a great sense of humor about it. But it does that thing where it'll bring these characters back from other Suda games, and you're like, oh, cool. And then it feels like it doesn't really do anything with them, or it'll, break the fourth wall, which is fine and funny and can be done really well. But you'll have a scene. So you beat your game, you're moving on to the next one, and your reward in between is you get a little bit more story, and all that is said in that story is like, oh man, we got to keep this short because we don't have a lot of budget. And like, that can work. You can do that. Mm-hmm. But when you do it multiple times, or when you don't kind of have anything else to supplant that, it just kind of ends up falling flat, and you're not sure what you're supposed to take away.
Well, like, just off the top of my head, like, you know, you talk about this really simple structure that you've played so many times before in a lot of different games.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things is like that I'm used to is like maybe the structure that you're talking about, moving into a room and then the next room, will usually be in games that are like beat 'em ups that are like Streets of Rage 2 length. You know, it's like I'm only gonna be playing this game for 2 hours anyway.
Right.
So that's fine, you know, or something like Disney Infinity where it's just like, yeah, okay, like there's a lot of other components to this game than this. Yeah, I can build levels and, you know, the figures and everything. Whereas it would be fun, considering how subversive Suda can be with his work, if you could almost get a sense that Travis going through this game is like, this sucks. You know, like I want to break out of this structure that like maybe even in the last level he like levels up the beam sword and now can just knock the walls down. Or like the game kind of glitches in a Metal Gear Solid 2 way where it's almost commenting on how mundane the experience is or how trapped he feels in this game, which could be better.
Yeah.
You know, like the budget doesn't have to limit you as far as like how you want to change things up. I don't know, just something.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem like that was there from the footage that I watched.
Brandon, this game really made me evaluate how I appreciate repetition in games and why some things work and other things don't. Because you even compare this to No More Heroes 1 or No More Heroes 2, and you can absolutely make the argument there are a lot of extremely similar fights in No More Heroes 1 and 2, and that the combat is simple. But just the fact that when you're fighting things in No More Heroes, you're right up in their face. You feel, I think your strikes have a little bit more weight behind them. It's a little bit flashier, whereas in Travis Strikes Again, a lot of times you're just so pulled out from the action that it doesn't really feel like a fight in the same way. Or I even think about Musou games, which are notoriously ragged on for being the same thing over and over again. And it's like, well, they do things within those games, or at least the good ones do, to kind of offset that, where it's like, okay, here's dozens and dozens. Yes, you're going to be doing the same thing, but at least you get dozens and dozens and dozens of characters to try out. Or when you do a super move, it's going to be so ridiculous that you're going to want to see everybody's, right? And so it seems like there's some trade-off for the repetition, and that trade-off doesn't seem to be here in the same way. Yeah, it was a bummer. It was a bummer. It's disappointing. Yeah, I'm not like angry at it in the way that I was with Fallout 76, where it just seemed built to make me mad. It's not that. It's just more of a like, this one didn't really hit me.
I gotta be honest though, when it comes, no offense, Blood.
Yeah.
But when a game is bad, I hope you're reviewing it. Because all of us have our own ways to, you know, go about, you know, taking a game apart if we're frustrated by it. Damiani definitely takes the gloves off. He does not care. Even if there's like one tiny mode or something, that paragraph's like, woo! Like, you got salty.
Yeah.
And I love that I could just sense you like, okay, this game has problems.
Yep.
I just think you structured that stuff really well. Again, bringing up Fallout 76, I was just like, oh, this is going to be good. And, you know, I think you did a good job with both of those.
Yeah.
Disappointed?
Because I think when you're coming down on something and your immediate thought is, this sucks, I think you want to, at least as a critic, be like, I need to really make sure that this actually sucks and it's not just this knee-jerk reaction. Because I think it's easy in a lot of games to get frustrated by something and immediately start blaming everything else. And it's like, no, let me take a look at what I'm doing, how I'm playing, and then like if all of those things are adding up and I'm still underwhelmed, then it's like, okay, there's really something. Yeah. There's something here. Obviously, you're not going to be perfect with that. Sometimes you're just going to get salty, but you do what you can. But something exciting has happened recently. They showed off Mortal Kombat 11. And it was a big, flashy event. Huber and I went. We played a lot of it. A lot of it, I mean, like a little over an hour.
Okay.
But it
for a fighting game.
For a fighting game.
Yeah.
It was really nice. There's actually going to be a separate impressions video up shortly, maybe even before you see this. We'll have to see. But the reason I'm bringing all of this up is the demons of the frame trap realm. As the show has gone on, they're like, we want to, you guys talk about what you love all the time. We want to have a little bit more involvement. They love Mortal Kombat because they're evil little guys, and everything about Mortal Kombat, the shock value, just the aesthetic, it's their jam. They just kind of bask in it. And so they're sponsoring this Caught in a Frame Trap right now. This is all them. And what we're gonna do is it's another game. It's a simple game, and I made it easier because I didn't know how familiar you guys were with Mortal Kombat.
Uh-oh.
So I didn't go like too hard on it.
Oh no.
Not when it comes to those deep dives.
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah. So the game is called Who Am I? Mortal Kombat Characters.
Oh no.
I think this is a good reaction. I think I'm
Trying
happy
to think
with this.
back on all the relevant Pop Fiction episodes.
Yeah.
Right.
So I picked what I think are well-known characters in Mortal Kombat.
Gulp.
And I have some descriptions of them. And the first one, and you can jump in at any time, the first one to come in and say it correctly will get it. We'll get a point. Yeah.
Gotta work together. Synergy.
There's 5 of them.
Okay.
Are you ready? Again, jump in at any point. First one you get it right gets in. Okay. Oh, God. So this guy protects Earthrealm from invaders. He can fly, teleport, and control the elements, particularly
Raiden.
Yeah. He's the. Yeah.
Blood got it right. See, you guys
Do they
are
call him the
fine.
God of Thunder or Thunder God? Like, or is that just...
I think they do.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I feel like either they do in the game or people have just called him that.
Okay.
I think Raiden, God of Thunder.
Right.
I want to call him Raiden, but it is Raiden. Raiden is correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, it's incorrect, but because of that, it's
Right.
now
Yeah.
correct.
Exactly. We don't need to get into that, but yes, Blood is right.
What you do in Destiny. Raiden.
All right, number 2. He's a crooked informant, an arms dealer to Shao Kahn, and he has an infrared eye laser. I'm taking a lot of these qualities from
Kano,
Wikipedia and the wiki, the Mortal Kombat wiki. What's up?
Kano?
Kano.
Okay.
I think Blood tricked you. I think he knows a lot more than he's letting on.
I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
I mean, so far, we're sticking with pretty early characters.
Yes. Yes. That was
I
intentional.
get an
That was
image in my
intentional.
head which will require at least a minute of thinking beyond that, and then he's one step ahead of me. So
Yeah.
it's working out.
The commanding officer of the United States Special Forces hates Kano and the Black Dragon Syndicate, can manipulate pink energy.
Johnny Cage?
Incorrect.
Nah, he's not. Yeah, Johnny Cage is a
Liu
military.
Kang.
Nope.
No.
Johnny Cage has like green energy.
Okay.
Is this a kid? Is this one of the Mortal Kombat kids? Because I know in 10 we got kids. We got like Sonya. Sonya they had a daughter though, didn't they?
Well, yeah, there's Sonya Blade.
But Sonya and Johnny Cage had a daughter, didn't they? And that was like in MK10. So I thought it was maybe one of the new kids. I don't know.
Do you want me to
throw
tell you?
out whatever knowledge I have.
Cassie Cage?
I think he said he though.
No, I didn't. If I did, I did not mean to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to do it one more time. The commanding officer of the United States Special Forces hates Kano and the Black Dragon Syndicate and can manipulate pink energy.
Don't know.
I will give
I
you a
really
hint.
think it's Sonya, but I don't know.
Oh,
It is Sonya.
Okay.
Oh,
It's Sonya
okay.
Blade, yes.
So I did say that, but you thought I wasn't actually saying it?
Yeah,
saying
I
it?
thought
Okay.
because that's what I was going to say is you guys said it, but I didn't know if you were committing to that
Got it,
answer.
got
yes, yes, you did say it. All right. Number 4. This person is a clone, hates katana, uses a pair of sai in combat, and has Tarkatan teeth.
Melina?
Yes.
Oh.
Blood is destroying this. Okay, last one. Shang Tsung is his subordinate, has tried to conquer Earthrealm multiple times, and wields the mighty Wrath Hammer.
Shao Kahn?
Correct.
These were pretty good. These
Blood?
weren't,
Yeah, they were all. I feel like they were all.
I was prepared with Noob Saibot like the whole
Sure,
time.
sure,
I was
sure.
like, Noob Saibot?
No, I was like, I'm
At
gonna
least
keep
that's a
this.
name that
I'm gonna
people might
keep
not be
this-
expecting.
I'm gonna keep this classic. We keep it simple. But yeah, maybe next time we'll have to go harder.
Yeah.
Blood. I don't. That might be the first 5 out of 5 on Frame Trap. I feel like I should give you something.
He was
I have
deceptive
nothing.
about his knowledge. He
Yes,
did.
he did.
He has been
crushed
doing
it.
research,
Yep.
and he really wanted you to think he wasn't.
No, that's the 20-something year memory popping up there.
I don't believe you.
Blood, congratulations on doing that. Your reward for that clean sleep is now we get to talk about our wonderful Frame Trap sponsors. So congratulations. Our first sponsor on the list is Greg, TheDarkKnight Kettering. Thank you, Greg. Next, we have Zoteg. Hi, allies! With the hype train for Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers pulling out of the station, I wanted to send out an invite to any allies on the Mattias server or Greater Aether data center to join our free company or cross-world link shell. Search Zotig up on Twitter, @Zotig, and send him a message. Whether you're just starting out in Eorzea or have been playing for years, let's get ready for Shadowbringers together. Just a side note, Brad and Damiani streamed. The Blue Mage just came out for Final Fantasy XIV. And it was just one of those things where it's like, I'd love to play this, and it's not happening.
Right.
You just have those moments.
Yeah, I haven't got to archive yet. I'm curious to see what that looks like.
14's fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a cool game. Thank you, Zotig. Next, we have JoJo's Dent Co. Thank you, JoJo. After that, we've got Ohyescoolgreat. Always fun to say. Thank you, Ohyescoolgreat. After that, we've got BeatenDownBrian. Thank you, a returning sponsor.
Nice.
Always cool to see. Thank you, BeatenDownBrian. And last but certainly not least for the regular sponsors, we have Easy A Weekly Clips. Do you miss the weekly Twitch clip compilations? Boy, do I have good news. They're back in a totally unofficial but still pretty cool capacity. Check out what Cell Splitter calls very good. It's time for our mega sponsor, Fantasy Critic Games, which I just think this is a really cool concept. Fantasy Critic is a new site where video gaming meets fantasy football. Grab your friends, create a league, and face off as you predict what the year's top-rated video games will be. Just like fantasy football, you'll hold I don't know anything about fantasy football. You'll hold a draft and stock your roster with the hottest up-and-coming titles. At the end of the year, the player will, with the best lineup of games based on review scores, courtesy of OpenCritic.com, will be crowned the winner. Think you know what games will come out on top? Head to fantasycritic.games now and play for free forever. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And we're back talking about games. There's another game that I think disappointed one of us, but we just kind of had that. We kind of had our we didn't really like this too much. So I think we need to go to a surefire hit. And it's something that I talked about last time on Frame Trap, and Brandon, you're jamming on it, and It seems like you're loving it. Onimusha.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's some things that are dated about this game. I'm having a lot of fun, but yeah, it's all
right.
This came out on the PlayStation 2 There's no question about
Brandon
that.
thinks this game sucks.
Yeah. I'll get the stupid stuff out of the way. The writing is hilariously bad.
But yes, it is. But isn't that part of the charm?
In an interesting way. I think like RE1 still is like the crown jewel of so bad it's good, and this is so bad it's off. There's some really weird inflection, and a lot of it's the performance, and I'm sure a lot of these people were coming in being directed by Japanese directors that are like, what? Who am? Okay, I'm a demon. We what? All right, but still very interesting. Especially this is a good time to be celebratory of Resident Evil and just the whole like survival genre, and it's fascinating to play a survival game like this that's dependent on skill and not just not just ammo reserves.
Yeah.
Like you just have your weapon. You can even pick your favorite weapon. Like even though I got like the red sword and the green, I'm like I'm all blue, baby, 100%. Unless I like have to. I got it. It's better for this type of enemy, or I need it to level something up to open this door. I definitely like have a style and love that. I think the main thing holding me back is the cameras are just crazy. This is a place my brain hasn't been in for a long time. And I don't remember having that many issues. I remember playing the first God of War and getting into a combo and the camera would keep swapping because I was right on that line of where the camera would change. But I mean, the camera will just jump to a whole different perspective in another part of the room. That's like cool and artistic and really, reveals the environment in a really dramatic way. But like, God, if I'm trying to attack this guy or see a boss or something, it's like
I don't know how much this factors into it, but you're playing with the zoomed in mode that goes full 16:9, or are you playing?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you went back to 4:3, if that would be as jarring.
Because I'm so close.
Yeah, you're like right in on it, and then it's like jumping to another like zoomed in.
I think because it is a version I haven't played, I kind of want to go all in on all the different stuff.
Sure, that makes sense.
Because I not only played Onimusha, I played Onimusha like crazy when that first came out. I loved I kept playing it again and again. And it's fun. I think one of the things I'm enjoying most about Onimusha, because I know you already talked about it, so I want to like try to steer the conversation in different directions.
Yeah.
Is it sits so far back in my brain. It's still there, but there's so many cobwebs on this game.
Absolutely.
That like,
sure.
For some reason, that first zone that you get into that's like that's like a square almost. It's right in front of the castle. It's like before you get into like the main area of the castle, and it's just this like swimming pool. You can just like run around this area. That one room is the game for me. Like, and whenever like Huber would bring up Onimusha, like, and I would try to think about it, I would just remember like this one specific space. And so it's just neat to play a game like this and walk into a room and be like, oh, this room's cool. I remember this room. Or like, oh, I remember this dumb enemy. Or like, oh yeah, I remember this boss.
I feel like that's Devil May Cry 1 and like the spider, you know, or
like,
where you get the shotgun. Yeah.
When you replay it, it's where you stop most of the time. You're like, oh, I played it up to that point to just remember it. And so that's so satisfying to get a game that's coming back after all these years. And there's some parts I'm surprised the save structure that they're so hardcore about having you save. Yeah. They're like, if you die, we're not auto-saving anything. You got to go back and manually save. And like, I don't know how hard that would have been to update, even just for like a remake.
I kind of like it though. It's different. I'm coming from brutal. A very different place from you, where I wasn't that familiar with Onimusha, and I played through Onimusha 1 for the first time last year, and it was nice having a save point be a thing of relief, or a thing that I would like, oh man, if I want to be careful, like before I venture on, I'm going to backtrack and save. And I can totally get people being annoyed by that, but it was something that I had to think about rather than just assuming it happened naturally, and that created excitement for me. Yeah, for sure.
And it's interesting. I remember I didn't play a lot of Devil May Cry just in general. I love Devil May Cry 2. Didn't realize at the time I loved it because it was easy. It's like, ooh, I got through that game in a jiff. That was fantastic. But especially, like looking at the breadth of Devil May Cry now, like I definitely know the quality from game to game. But I've never really been good at those games, and I have not played, really put a lot of time into Bayonetta 1 or 2, and they've just never really been the games that I gravitate towards because I don't naturally have that skill. But I still have gotten better. Bloodborne was a huge chapter in my life of like, getting good at dodging, getting good at manipulating a character, and seeing from a mile away these big attacks and knowing, that attack is followed up by 2 other attacks, so I should just get really far away from this enemy when they start revving stuff up like that. And so it's interesting going back, playing Onimusha again, bringing that skill level that I did not have in the PS2 era that I do have now, but then struggling with the dodge system that's not really built for dodging big, huge enemy attacks, the camera, which is switching a lot. So it's like I'm better at it and worse at it. My brain kind of has to go back in time, but it still has the skill set that I've developed, in the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 era now. So it's fascinating. It's something that I definitely want to. When we got the code and I first popped it in, I was so obsessed with Odyssey that I'm like, okay, I don't know how much Odyssey time I want to sacrifice to jump into Onimusha right now. I'm like, I'll just play it for an hour, and like I couldn't stop. It was like it's so much fun, and I remember this, and I'm having such a good time playing it that I'm excited to finish it up. Haven't beat it yet, but
I think it is so smart how they introduce enemies in that game, because at the beginning, I feel like as long as you are blocking, you can get through every fight, no problem. It is just, okay, you wait for them to attack, you block, and then you counterattack. And then they start introducing enemies where it's like, okay, well, they'll grab you, and you just need to avoid that. Yeah. Or they have enemies where it's like, yes, you can keep attacking them, but you should try to find ways they'll split up into multiple copies of themselves, and so you want to deal with that all at once, or they'll attack you from a distance, and so you can't just stay planted, you need to keep moving around. And so they kind of force you to adapt in a way that I really appreciate as the game goes on.
One thing I think actually it works for the now outdated camera setup and how you explore that environment is those bastards that suck up your souls.
Oh man!
But it's fun because a lot of times you won't know they're in the room with you,
right?
And I'll like finally kill that last guy, and I'm like, no. Yep. And so like now I gotta find him. Like, where are you?
Yep.
And so it does, and the same thing with the original Resident Evils. You hear the zombie before you see it. Like there is a charm to isolating your perspective. And the first thing that I thought of when I went in, it was like, wow, how is this game gonna feel? And like I'm fighting the first enemies, and I'm like, oh, it's Neo. Neo is where we went with this whole this style of game. And I'm sure you have a lot more to say because you play a lot more games like this than I do. But it's neat knowing that some people kind of picked up the mantle of Onimusha, and it's neat that like if Onimusha is to come back. We have so many, like Crash and Spyro. Like, we have so many franchises that we're like, are we going to get a new sequel or are we just going to get more remasters? It's neat to think that they can learn from Neo, who learned from Onimusha, and possibly come back with like a fresh entry in the franchise.
The
Self-aware and relevant in 2019.
The only counter that I would have to that is, as much as I enjoyed Neo, I think what I enjoy the most about Onimusha is it's not quite as crazy on the systems and the stats, where it's like, yes, you do have things to upgrade, there is progression, but it's really scaled down in a nice, easy to digest way, and I think that simplicity is part of what makes it fun. And Onimusha is where it's like, I can finish this in 1 or 2 settings. Yes. And that's really satisfying. And we need more of that, where we're getting this great action experience, but it is not like Neo. You'd be playing that for weeks.
Oh, there's like side missions you're going on, and it's nice having a linear story focus.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we're missing games where, like, when you get a new sword or when you get a suit of armor, like, this is a significant, important part of the game that like, feels really great, rather than like, all right, you got like 15 different loot sets, mix and match them the way you want.
Exactly.
You know, find the ones that have the abilities you like. You know, it's like, and that works really well. But like, I think it's one of those few things, like with God of War, they're like, wish you'd dial that back a bit. There's too much armor in this game.
Yeah.
I do think it is funny in Onimusha. This happens in Resident Evil 2 as well, but just the moments where the enemy is very close to you or somewhat close to you, but you just can't see it because, like, the camera, you're here and the camera is looking that way and the enemy is behind the camera, and so you're just waiting. Like, you're just waiting for them to creep in the frame before you can counterattack. Brandon, your experience with this re-release, did you wish they added more, or is it just because, like you said, the kind of cobwebs were building up that it was satisfying just revisiting it?
Just for me personally, yeah, I think it's fine as is.
Cool.
I don't know, what more, because I think you either have to take one direction or the other. Just do it. You know, Shadow of the Colossus, make it look better. Do it. You're done.
Yeah.
Versus, no, we're actually going to change it a little bit, but there's going to be a theme to how we change it. It's not going to be desperate. We're just like, more modes. We need to justify a higher price point. And so if I come into a game like this and I'm like, is anything different? Oh, it's the same? Okay, great. So then I can set my expectations that way. Where if they start changing up the gameplay or throwing in a character that was in some other version of it or some updates, like Genma Onimusha, if they're like taking, I don't remember the stuff that they added to that when it went to the Xbox, if they're like trying to, make it a more complete package, then I start nitpicking, okay, what actually did you do? Right. But if it's just a straight port, like, I appreciate that for what it is. And there's just nothing, in my experience, I can't think of anything. The saving was the only thing I was like, you could have maybe updated that.
So I haven't played Genma Onimusha, but I do find it weird that the stuff from Genma Onimusha is not in this. Like, I just don't know.
I don't remember what they added. Like,
why it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I will say, though, and I'm curious to get your opinion, so you can quick equip weapons in that game. You don't have to go into the menu. And I should be doing that, but just because I'm so used to going into the menu and selecting a different sword, I'm just doing that, and then I just slowly forget that it's even an option.
Yeah.
Has that been a problem for you, or are you taking advantage of the quick equip?
The right trigger, yeah. But it's the thing about that, again, it's just like that fine line between, should we leave it as is because that's pure and fun?
Right.
And even if it is archaic, you can appreciate that. And, remember the PS2 era?
Yeah.
And you can't, if you tap R2 to change your weapon, you can't change to the bow. Just like, you actually have to manually go into your menu to pick that. And then when you have the bow out and you switch to the sword, you can't switch back to the bow. You got to go back into the menu and pull it out.
Okay.
And when the camera is pointed at you and the bow's that way, it's like, I can't see what I'm aiming at. I don't know. You shoot the arrow to hit it. I don't know. And you can't change while you're moving. So if I'm running away from an enemy and I want to switch to a weapon and attack it.
Gotcha.
And so you think of like, when we move to the PS3 era, that's when they realize like, if you can switch like mid-strike, you can maybe do a combo when you're switching back and forth. And that's where like you can see the genre evolve.
Sure.
And so it's like, if we're remaking Onimusha, should we just add that? Like, you can like, how hard would that be? Yeah, you can just change it while you're running around. Or no, we want to preserve the quote-unquote difficulty, I guess, that's present, and you have to stop, and now you can change weapons and then use that.
Cool.
Because one of the fun things that they do in Onimusha, I think to great effect, is those big red guys with the grab that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I hate those dudes. That took a while for me to get used to their rhythms. And then I finally was used to those guys, and then I would go into a room where there's a red guy and then two of those spiky, twirly guys. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, these guys are not that hard on its own now, but man, you just have that perfect, toxic mixture of like, I can't, let me fight this guy first and then I'll fight you. It's neat to, those restrictions are still, kind of fun. It's difficult in a good way. And it's nice. It's nice to play a game like this and be like, this still works. You could still, I think I don't think it's outdated, but I don't think the concept is outdated. I think we can still get Onimusha 5.
Brandon, it was one of those
2019, and it'd be great.
Those things when I played through Onimusha, I was surprised at how well I thought it held up and how much enjoyment I was getting from it and how much of its design I think was still pretty solid. And then hearing other perspectives and being like, oh, this is too old. And it's kind of a disconnecting experience for me because I'm like, am I just very tolerant of some of these annoyances or are they actually that bad? And sometimes it's hard to gauge.
It's a weird thing with remasters because some of the worst parts are what people love the most.
Right.
They're like, no, it's kind of why I like to have my brain be like, whoa, games used to be like this. I like the opportunity of like having a friend jump in that didn't play it and they're like, I hate this. And you're like, yeah, I know, doesn't that suck? Like you just want to have, you want them to remember it the way you do.
Right.
So it's tough. I think remakes, there's gonna be people who's gonna hate what you did because they wanted their own take on it. But
if Capcom announced tomorrow, hey, we're bringing the rest of the Onimusha series over, would that be an exciting prospect for you?
Oh, totally. I would play, especially because I didn't play 3 at all, and I bought 2 and intended to play 2, but didn't, and so, or at least didn't finish it. So yeah, I would love the opportunity to go back. And they're just not, you don't sit with these games for that long, especially now.
No, you don't.
I think at the time it felt like a big, deep adventure, but it's like,
right.
We're the games have gotten so much bigger and more complex.
It is
something like this. It's like, oh.
That is a funny sensation, Brandon.
Done.
Yeah.
Where like definitely some like PS1, PS2 games at the time felt like these big grand adventures, and now it's like, oh, that was quick.
Yeah.
Like
This game is 2 discs. Whoa.
Yeah. Games. Our expectation for what is grand has definitely changed.
Final Fantasy 6 is 60 hours, man. Like what?
Yeah.
60? Like 40 if you do the straight path, but you blow that up and it could be 60.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest
everything
11,
is
like an
right.
hour,
right.
Red Dead hour 120.
I've heard from a number of people that Onimusha 2 is their favorite, and I got a few hours into Onimusha 2, and I need to get back to it. I'm kind of in this position though where it's like, well, are they going to remaster it? Should I wait? Yeah. And I should probably just play it on PS2, but then it's like,
no, you wait, man.
You wait? You think so?
Yeah.
Because I think there is some appeal in playing that original version.
Yeah.
But it's just, we talked about it with VR before, where sometimes you just don't want to dig out that thing and plug it in when there's already so many things competing for that attention. And it's nothing against the game, of course. It's just okay.
Cross it off.
Brandon, what I'm really saying to you is I want to play everything. I want to freeze time, and I just want to play everything. It's not possible.
I was thinking about all the open world games I played last year, and I still lament Watch Dogs. I didn't play Watch Dogs 1 or 2.
Yep.
It's like, how can I call myself any kind of an open world fan? I never finished Sleeping Dogs.
I think it is very easy to have the realization that it never ends be like kind of a crushing thing. Sure. You just got to turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
It never ends. Yeah. There's always going to be more to play.
I'm not going to play Watch Dogs 3 either.
Yeah. but maybe someday, maybe 5 years from now, we'll be on a frame trap and you'll be talking about all 3 Watch Dogs that you binged in 2 weeks or something. I don't know. All right. We're going to bring it back down because, Blood, you reviewed a game that you also did not love. Vane, which I know I know not almost nothing. I know nothing about.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's why like there's definitely a contrast with Travis Strikes Again, because with that it's like this established franchise. You know Suda, you love Suda, you know there's limitations, but he's gonna do something crazy, and you've got all these expectations built up. And yeah, like you're saying with Vane, it's like, I think I saw that in a PlayStation experience or something. Like, I don't know. I remember there were a trailer or something, but for some reason when it came up, with all the emails, and I, get dozens of emails a day for games that are on the way. I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. I think I'll review that. And I get it in, and I'm just ready for whatever. I don't know who's made this game. I don't know what the gameplay is like. I'm ready, and and there's a prologue where you start playing as a boy, and then like all of a sudden, like I'm on a branch and I'm just a bird, and like, oh, okay, I'm flying as a bird. Let's go see what this is about, and you just have this huge desert, and you just start exploring, and you start landing on things, and you've got to call other birds, and then that makes the thing, blow stuff off into the wind, and you're just sort of piecing it all together. And I kind of get a little further in, and kind of the sort of culmination of the first area is that the bird changes into a boy. I'm like, oh, okay, or I guess it's a child. It's just like ambiguous in terms of gender. And then I was trying to figure out, like, okay, so now what do I do? And I sort of saw that, like, there's these little gold flakes kind of leading me up towards this path. And like, okay, I'll go here. And it's like, oh, there's a door. And I start pushing open the door. And then after I push open the door, my character's still pushing. And they're just pushing and pushing. And then I just keep walking into this cave. But I can't jump. I can't do anything else. And
wait, so as you're walking in the cave, there's still
doing the animation. Yeah, nothing in front of them, but
like just this constant.
I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed that. Yes, thank you, Brandon.
And I had so I guess I'll quit the game and see if that fixes the bug. Quit the game. Back to the bird on the branch. 25 minutes of gameplay just gone. There was no checkpoint there. The checkpoint was just like a few feet further.
I mean, that would be annoying in any game, of course, but I feel like especially in a game where, from what you're saying, the whole point is that you're uncovering something.
Yeah.
When you
so
lose
you're
that,
kind
it's
of getting
like
this momentum of like discovering the world, discovering how everything works, and then it's like, I gotta go repeat everything.
It's also like you get the bugs, man. More than it's the same thing on Twitter, man. There's just some people that get the bugs. Like Jason Sackle was posting stuff from Spider-Man. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. Like he has crazy stuff I've never even seen, like other people do, and like he just gets cursed.
In what?
His just characters stopping and stuff freezing, and quests not starting, and like just really weird speed bumps. And like you just get just spectacular bugs, man. Almost to the point where like I want to give you your own show. I'm afraid that'll curse it, and then the bugs will stop.
Right.
Because they're so entertaining to watch. But I felt sad for you because in this type of game, so much of it's like, what does this do? Oh, it does this. And so when he's still pushing, you're like, maybe this is part of it. You're like, I don't know, because there's no text. There's no, I have to. My understanding of this game is dependent on me in a lot of respects.
Well, and I think too, part of this game is it's sort of like there is this vastness. Like a lot of, and it's funny to me, man, I don't want to put other people down, but like when they issued like the patch notes, because they told me like right before the game came out, I was like, hey, there's going to be a patch. And then they issued patch notes, and there's also a guide, and I'm like, a guide for what? This isn't a game you need a guide for. And then I like kind of heard afterwards, like other reviews complain about like not being able to figure out what to do. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay.
That is some classic smug blood right there.
Well, it's kind of like
you
Journey.
couldn't figure
but it was
this
just
out.
one of these things where like you just have to go out and look for stuff and like, oh, there's something. And
it's the Bossman method, It's like you just want to experience it. You don't want to go note by note.
Well, you
don't want someone else to tell you how to play the game,
You mentioned people getting the bugs, and part of me is like seeing other people play, and not that there's anything wrong with this method, but sometimes people just intentionally try to do the dumbest thing every part of the way, where they're like, oh, yeah. I'm going to crash into this and see what happens, and they're just curious, but I feel like sometimes that style just lends itself more to breaking things. Yeah. Obviously.
Well, and then where it really broke down though was okay. So I get into the second area, which is all interior, and you do some mix of both the bird and the child, and I get through all of those puzzles and figure that out. Ends again with a door. Walk up to the door. Just stands in front of it. Will not push the door. I'm just standing in front of this door, okay, well maybe if I change back into the bird and then change back, then it'll work. And it's no, it's child just refuses to push the door, and again, turn it off, back on, whole other 20-minute section of the game that I gotta restart.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And you can't, so it's just, you're relying on autosaves. You can't manually save.
There's no manually save.
Hmm.
So basically there were 3 times in my first playthrough in which these things happened that were completely stopped me from playing. Sure. And had to reset and repeat things. And then they issued the patch, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to, they mentioned they didn't mention anything that sounded like what I had found, but they mentioned some things that sounded similar. So let me go, I'll play through it again. I'll try to see if I find these bugs. And the pushing stuff worked at first, but then there's one spot I found. It was kind of almost like a secret area in the first space where I could push, and it wasn't just like end of the chapter. So like I knew I could like push something over, so I could just like get there really quick and try. And then sure enough, like after I'd played the game twice, I was able to repeat this push bug where we just get stuck in the push animation. Like,
I have those points marked in my review.
Yeah.
And I love Blood's like, oh, they fixed that bug, take it out, but you can put this bug back in. Or like, I got a fresh batch for you from this new playthrough. Some fun discoveries. And I felt bad because I always read, when I'm editing something, and of course I'm voicing it, so I always read the script before I sit down and edit. And I saw the score and was like, oh, bummer. And I booted up. I'm like, oh, this game's beautiful. And like, the first clip, he starts flying around. And I'm like, God, I don't know what you're talking about, Blood. This game is, wow, the color palette's really interesting. And like, oh. And then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, yeah, okay. Okay, I'm there with you.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing is it has some interesting concepts going on. And, I didn't go into like all of the mechanics. Some of it's in the review and some of it's, definitely in spoiler areas. But it's just one of those things where like, if you're going to have these really cool, crazy, inventive mechanics, it needs to be like really solid and feel seamless. And just in a lot of ways, it just doesn't. Just like a lot of moving through that really creative stuff, it's a struggle sometimes for the character control and the camera movement.
I think the thing that's been hard for me to grasp is you talk about starting as a bird and then you're a boy and you're solving these puzzles.
Yeah.
What are you piecing together? Like, what is the point of all of it? What is your objective?
Right. I mean, a lot of it is sort of up to interpretation. You know, you're just kind of, doing what you can do, and it's leading you further in, and you get to see new experiences, and eventually it does kind of come to a point where it's like, oh, okay, like this is more of an aha moment, but at the end of it, I'm still not entirely sure what it was about.
You're not entirely sure what it's about in a way that leaves you curious and thinking, or not sure what it's about and you're disappointed and unsatisfied?
What do you think?
It doesn't have quite those kind of impacts as, like when I got to the end of Rhyme, it was like, whoa, like it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like it really wasn't while I was playing most of the game. It was like, oh, this is cool. This is really pretty. I think
the end of Rhyme really made it come together.
But yeah, once you get to the end of Rhyme, it's like, oh, whoa. Whereas like when I get to the end of Vane, I'm like, I guess this is sort of about group dynamics and needing other people's help and following the crowd, and then maybe in some ways eventually that can go wrong. I don't know exactly what it's trying to get at. So like, is one ending, which of these endings is the good ending, which is the bad ending, in a way? Sure. So
I do think it's a good time for a little bit of a PSA, though. I think more people need to play Rhyme. Mm-hmm. I think that game is better than the attention that it got, and it's not a long commitment. It's a good trip. And as Blood described, the ending is pretty impactful, I think. So.
Amanda would love Rhyme.
Yeah.
Can't remember that. And it's probably, discounted maybe on Switch?
Yeah. I don't know how much it is now.
I would not get it on Switch.
It's not on Switch?
I would not get it on Switch.
Oh.
Because the frame rate's bad? Or?
Yeah, the performance. Like, it's beyond, it's like, it's a little distracting in the PS4 or whatever. On the Switch, it's like, okay, let's not.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that when you guys play games together, is it mostly on Switch?
When she plays games, she loves the Switch. Cool. Loves being able to.
I mean, maybe she wouldn't mind, but to me, it was a really...
Amanda has one of those she has blinders on, but lovely blinders that I would love to take off of her and wear myself, where she cannot see frame rate. Like, I'll be playing a game, and I'm like, frame rate's bad. She's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, here, I'll show you. And then, like, I recreate something. I'm like, that right there. She's like, I don't see what you're talking about. But in the same sense, I'm a film major, but I have film friends that they're like, that processing of something. And I'm like, well, I
don't see it.
I kind of see it, but it's not bothering me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we could customize blinders for that stuff and just avoid the headache.
Just talk to an audio guy about mixing for a room and like just have a whole conversation that's going way over your head.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about before we move on to the rest of the show, I'm really pumped to talk about, and that is Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown.
Nice.
Ace Combat is a weird series for me, where I have some level of familiarity. I've dabbled in those games, but it was forever ago. So I know what Ace Combat is to some level, but I don't really know Ace Combat. I've never taken a deep dive or a substantial dive on Ace Combat. And maybe this is just me, and maybe this is crazy, but any game where it's like, okay, you're going to be a pilot. And then I think about planes, and I think about how complicated it can be. And I'm like, oh man, like, is this just going to be too much for me? I realize that the appeal of Ace Combat is that it simplifies those things. It's not a simulator. It's different than that. But I just didn't know how I would take to it. I played a VR demo last year or the year before, and I walked away very optimistic and wanting to play more. And that's what I think that experience is what really drove me to check out Ace Combat 7. I finished the third mission, so I'm only 3 missions in, but it has done pretty much nothing but impress me in a lot of ways. The first thing I want to talk about is kind of the storytelling that I think is intriguing. I'm not going to sit here and say it's this incredible, gonna tug at your heartstrings story, but I kind of like the approach where you're dealing with this woman who kind of falls in love with planes because of the people that she's with, and she kind of completes this passion project. And so just very immediately they personalize that story, and it kind of bounces between her and that more intimate story and this broader war that's going on. And they intertwine both of them in a way that it's like, okay, you're going to have some human attachment to this, but it is also going to be a grand conflict. I'm like, that's a really good way to do that. And also it just controls like a dream. It is so easy to get in there. And they contextualize everything within the missions itself. You're just going and they're like, okay, you're about to encounter this thing. Here's how you deal with it. And then 5 seconds later, you're doing it. You get it. You understand. And you feel like you pick up a lot of mechanics immediately without them needing to be explained over to you again and again. You don't need to do trial and error again and again. And you just, by the second mission, I was like, I feel like a badass pilot. This is great. I love this. And yeah, it really does a great job of stringing you along, because you'll be doing a mission and you'll get in the clouds, and they're like, hey, if you spend too much time in the clouds, you're going to have icing and you're going to lose some maneuverability. Or like if you're going to need to slam on the brakes a lot so you can do these quick turns so you can get these guys and so you can shoot missiles at them and down them. But if you slam on the brakes too hard, you'll stall out. And it's like, that sounds really crippling, but all you need to do to get out of a stall is you just need to start accelerating. And so nothing is ever damning. It's just there to add a little bit of drama to these fights. Like I never feel like they make these things too crazy. It's just enough to where you kind of have these stories that you walk away from, where it's like, oh man, I'm chasing this guy. He went into the clouds. Because he went into the clouds, the missiles I shot at him didn't hit. But then we got out and I was able to land a few. Mm-hmm. And so it just kind of builds up these little moments that feel really exciting. And in the third mission, they kind of put your teammates in danger in a way that like I really cared about. And it's like, oh man, okay, so the first 2 missions, I was learning all of this stuff, and then by the third mission, I'm applying all of that stuff, and I care about the people that I'm fighting with. And so, yeah, all of that has just been really, really cool. It is not the best-looking game. It is not like this technical showpiece. But there are cool things. Just going through the clouds in first person and having the water on the windshield of the plane, I think is really cool. But yeah, not a technical showpiece, but I think playing it and just kind of how well it introduces you to its concepts is pretty remarkable. And the upgrades are interesting in the sense that, like, right now it's pretty straightforward where you have this tree that you're going on, and it's like, okay, depending on how you do in these missions, you'll earn more credits. You can spend those credits on different things. And each of these planes has 3 different special weapons that you can bring with you into battle. But you can only pick one of those 3. And so far, it's like no matter what I pick, I can still get through the mission. But I kind of have to decide what I care about the most. Do I want to take care of a bunch of enemies at once? Is that really important to me? Would I struggle with that otherwise? Do I want to have a weapon that's really good with dealing with things on the ground? Do I struggle with that? And so it's like all of these are good, and I can pick whatever I want. It's just which area do I want to focus on? And I think that's pretty cool as well. And so I'm excited to play more of that. I have no idea how long it is. And I'm excited to actually try the VR on my own with PlayStation VR. But yeah, just a cool game. I'm worried that in this month of Resident Evil 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3, it is something that is going to be completely ignored. But basically, as a total outsider to Ace Combat, almost, it definitely seems like it is justifying earning its time for me. I
mean, I think it's gotten out ahead of those well enough.
Sure.
I mean, there's definitely gonna be some people that are like, I just want to wait, but I think there's others that are like, I just want to play something now.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, and I haven't really gotten into Ace Combat either. Like, I think I probably played some games here or there for some capture at GT, but have never really gotten into them. And and it's one of those things where I'm like, well, why?
Right.
I used to play lots of Star Fox and Rogue Squadron and all that, and I just never got into Ace Combat for whatever random reason.
Yeah, I don't know why either, but I kind of feel the same way. It is nice that I think if you pre-ordered Ace Combat 7, which I did, you got Ace Combat 5, and so it's like, oh, cool. Well, if I end up really loving this, I have another thing to jump into on PS4.
I always think about the PSX guy whenever I think of Ace Combat 7. Because when it was first announced, or maybe really blown out, maybe like people knew 7 was coming, but they hadn't seen a trailer. Mm-hmm. But it was, I don't remember what PSX it was, but it was in the one where like the room we were all in was this like massive hangar. And we were like all the way at the end of it. And it was huge, tons of seats and a bunch of people there. And when they said Ace Combat 7, just one guy like stood up in the crowd and was like, yeah! Every time I was like, all right, Ace Combat 7 guy. And Ace Combat's interesting. I think about it. It reminds me of something like Codemasters, where, we're like, Huber's so depressed because Hitman 2 didn't sell well. I think we're all kind of sad. Like, we really want that series. They're doing so well. It's like the best.
You mean IO or?
Just the sales.
IO did so much right with Hitman 2, and they're just not being rewarded for it.
And it just did, and you're like, no! And so it's like every installment is like a question mark, like, are they going to have enough funding to do it? And Ace Combat's just like, we just get more games of more of these games, and it sells just enough to placate its base and to get the resources to do another one. And I know 7's like been in the cooker for a long time. But
that's
it reminds me of these racing games sometimes that you'll cover that are just kind of like, here's another one. You're like, whoa, I don't know anyone that talks about it. Even in the industry, going to events and talking to other weird people that might have interests outside my comfort zone doesn't come up in conversation. But clearly, there's enough people that are buying them that are supporting it. So it's interesting these franchises that have found just enough development time and budgets that they can continue working on it. Yeah,
I don't know how far this goes because I'm still early on in Ace Combat 7. But there's just a hint of goofiness as well.
Sure.
That is also making me really excited. Like, I'm like, I wonder how goofy this is gonna get. Just some of the lines that people say, or just the situations they find themselves in. It's like you're just making this a little bit fantastical in a way that like I'm kind of super into.
Yeah.
And so
just dashes of EDF in there. Like,
what? Something like that. Anyway, for sure. And the other thing, you mentioned this PSX guy, and I thought I thought when you said PSX of the PlayStation 1, and I'm like, PlayStation 1 guy? What is Brandon talking about? I think another reason why Ace Combat 7 was on my radar the way that it was not just playing that VR demo, but Ace Combat, since I talked about it, I feel like there have been a couple of people who are super passionate about Ace Combat where they're like, hey, don't forget about this. Give this a chance.
yeah.
Like, they're just very dedicated to it. And, like, those people kind of kept putting it in my brain, and I commend them. And, it must say something about the series if these people will go out of their way to really make sure, that, hey, give this a shot.
I also think there is this, we've talked about this a little bit before, but there is this interesting, the course of the development, because we were, at one point, probably a year and a half ago, we were, like, seeing Ace Combat 7, like, any chance that they could. Like, Bandai Namco was, like, getting in front of us over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, it just, like, disappeared, and it was like, what's going on? And it's just like, it just made me really curious, and I think it's probably paid off from the sound of it.
Yeah, it's definitely been good so far. Excited to hopefully see where it goes. I'm not on the hook for covering Ace Combat, and I am on the hook for covering other things, so I kind of have to fit it in between other stuff. But yeah, I definitely want to play more of it for sure. Yeah. I know Damiani is reviewing it. Blood, you mentioned that you were interested. Do you think you'll check out Ace Combat 7? Do you have time to check out Ace Combat 7?
I would like to, but as I said, I'm in this weird position where I've started like 6 or 7 different things at the same time. And like, okay, what's...
I feel like I'm always in that
right now, like I think like Red Dead is like my main focus, and then dabbling in some of the other things.
Sure.
We got a disc for 7, didn't we?
We did, yeah. Damiani's using that for the review.
I would love to steal that from him just because the VR...
pass it around, yeah.
And is that something you need to unlock in the campaign, or can you jump right in?
No, my understanding of it is that you have the campaign, which is not in VR, and then you have your own little separate VR mode that you can mess around with.
I love that. And I'd love to go back in and spend more time.
I don't think you have to unlock it. Not 100% about that, but I don't think you do. So, yeah.
Cool. It's fun.
Yeah. Ace Combat 7 is fun early on. Going to play more. You know what else is fun? This is always a good time. Always a little hot.
Pokemon?
HOTTAKE!
Oh, God! I thought it was Pokemon.
Burned up that Pokemon there.
I did.
A little too hot. So last time on Frame Trap, we talked about games. We played a game, and we were like, hey, what do we have the most confidence in right now with what we know for 2019? And I left Metro Exodus off that list. As many of you pointed out, you were right to point that out. I shouldn't have let... That was shameful. Whoa. Shouldn't have happened. But I kind of wanted to keep the 2019 theme going. I wanted to take a different, broader look, and not just about the games. I want to talk about what we think is going to happen within the game industry in 2019. And so I've compiled a list, and I want to ask you guys, what do we want to see out of these companies, these developers, publishers? You can go as broad as you want to with it, but what do we want to see out of these companies in 2019? Not just with the games that they're making, obviously that's a huge part of it, but how they sell these things and what their messaging is and how they, communicate with fans. It just everything, the whole bag. And I've got a list, and I tried to keep them very different in size and with focus, I guess. But the first one I have, just because it's always contentious, is what do you want to see out of Electronic Arts in 2019?
I thought it might, when you said companies, for some reason EA popped in my head, and then I looked on your list like, oh,
this is the first one. This is the first one I wrote down was EA. But EA, is gonna... A lot is happening right now. A lot is always happening with EA, but especially in the very near future with Anthem, that is next month.
I would like to see them really... I don't know why it seems so hard, but they just seem so disconnected. Yes! Really connect to why something is interesting and exciting. I made fun of in Slack the other day. They put out that Anthem video, and it's like, Anthem is a world about a chaotic world or something like that. And I'm like, what? Just don't do that. That's not how you write a sentence. That's not how you start your video.
You have to know how late to the game you are with this game of this style. You have to be like, here's what separates it from stuff. Here's what's unexpected about this game. Not like, it's a big world.
When you say disconnected, Blood, I think about the fact that sometimes I forget DICE works on Battlefront 2, or I forget that BioWare is working on Anthem.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like there have been times in the past with other properties where I could kind of see that identity a little bit more. And sometimes I do think you're right, where there is this disconnection where sometimes I feel like a lot of EA games feel the same in some way. Even if they're in completely different genres, even if they're made by completely different teams, it just starts bleeding together. Whether it's how they monetize it or how they market it, something, there's just kind of like this EA haze, I feel like.
Well, and I think that's part of it is that in some weird way, it feels like EA is disconnected from their own developers. You know, we talk, about the whole thing that happened with the Visceral game and all this, and it sounds like part of that is EA didn't seem to really know what was going on with them internally, and part of that is that EA is making everyone use Frostbite, and Frostbite doesn't seem to be workable for some of these games, and rather than letting their teams like pick the engine or build the engine or figure out what's going to be the best thing for the game they want to make, it's just like, nope, you're using that, we own that. So it's kind of it's weird, and they've been the butt of so much hate from people despite their high sales for so long. It's just like figure out how to really get in there and connect to people. And I think on some level DICE does that with the Battlefield fans. Like, they've got a lot of integration with streamers and feedback from people and all of this going on.
Right.
But then that doesn't seem to get communicated to everybody else, the broader market.
Dude, this guy is saying everything I want to say. I think I want to touch upon a little of that, but you said that so well. It's this. Look at A Way Out. Like, that game had a lot. That was a great game, and like had a lot of character to it. Joseph Ferris is a big character. None of that's coming from EA. That's him.
Right.
It's him and his team, his vision for that game. And then once you get back to this like parent company, when you talk about their relationship with him, there's nothing there. And there's the same thing with Battlefront, where it's like there were a lot of issues with how that was structured, and like it seemed like DICE wasn't able to communicate with their fans in a way that they wanted to. They were clearly being hamstrung by EA, and EA was horrible at how they did the messaging. Even when it seemed like they were kind of self-aware, they just screwed all of that up. And so it just like the gap between them as a company and the spirit of their developers that they choose to make games is so apparent. It's painful.
Yeah.
And when you just think of all of these other companies, Capcom with Monster Hunter and all the fun stuff they're throwing in, the synergy between their other companies, and even Capcom's relationship with Square, a lot of the crossover stuff that they're doing, Nintendo and how much fun they're having with Smash, and like bringing all those other companies into it, and bringing a lot of independent games to the Switch. There's so many exciting things that I can think about that are not only working out well, but it was clear that was the intent all along. And if something went astray, or if there was some kind of hiccup, they corrected it or communicated why it happened, because things are going to go bad in any game. And it just seems like EA every single time is completely unprepared, because they just, it kind of feels like, not to dump on Viacom or Defy for no reason, but it reminds me of the two opportunities I had to work in a giant company and see the wheels spin in a lot of different departments. And this vibe where you would have a manager come in through, either their fault or no fault, and just kind of be like, what's going on? And you're like, oh, now I got to bring you up to speed. Sure. And it just, anytime I get an update from EA, it feels like that. It's like, what are we working on? So they're working on this. And you're just like, that was the, one meeting. And then they seem to be caught up to date. The EA press conference at E3 is more just like, and now it's your time, FIFA, go out. And then it's like, oh, that FIFA presentation was actually kind of fun to watch. Had nothing to do with EA. Right. It was just fun people work on FIFA. It's like, it just, for once, I want to find, some, again, Anthem. Like, I'm excited about it because of BioWare. I'm excited about it because I played it and it feels good. I'm not excited because EA's in charge.
Brandon, I want to talk about Anthem because they've been kind of having, on IGN, they've been doing, I think it's IGN First, they've been doing different, they've been doing extensive coverage on Anthem. And I had a really weird schism of impressions where I watched a gameplay video where it was just them focusing on the combat, getting out there, exploring the world, killing dudes, and I was like, this looks awesome. Like, this just looks really kinetic and fun, and it has a style to it, a look. It seems like there's a great flow. I was super into it. And then they're like, now we're going to show you this totally separate video. We're going to show you the hub and you interacting with like shopkeepers and stuff. And they would just talk. And I was like, I don't know if I've ever heard someone in a game sound so boring. In like, I just couldn't believe it. And, you know, I haven't played the game yet. We gotta be open. This could just be a very weird vertical slice, but I was just like, just the way that the words are strung together and how the delivery that you're giving, like it's just, you don't feel like a real person. Sure. And it was weird. I walked away from those two videos being like, I just don't know how to feel. I have no idea. Right. I have no gauge for how Anthem is going to go for me. So I don't know. I guess kind of keeping that in mind, do you think Anthem will be a success for some way? Is this something that they're going to be able to stick?
I just don't think any of these games are a success out of the gate. Fortnite wasn't. You know, like when each of these games starts, that's really trying to be like a lifestyle choice. That they're like, no, we want you to come in and live here. You know, set up your sleeping bag and stick around for a while. I just don't think any of those games are really like punch right out of the gate. And so I just think it's inevitable that Anthem is going to not meet expectations completely when it launches. But I just for some weird reason believe in it. I don't know why. I just really get this vibe of permanence, of this being a very big investment on behalf of BioWare, and this is really a world that they care about. And I just have to emphasize, the first time I was like, what do I do? And they're like, you hold down A, and I went, oh, that feels great. You know, and like I think when you have a game where it's like, sometimes I'm going to be just floating through this world and finding stuff while I'm waiting for my friends to come online, or I might do stuff single player because this mission can be done by, you know, I don't need other support. And then also, no, I'm with my friends, we're doing a raid, we're all, this is very intense right now, you know, we're doing something that's very difficult, you know, to have gameplay that's just fun. Hopefully it carries you through all of those different styles or different times where you're going to be spending time with it.
Do you think it will run into the same problem that it feels like all of these games have run into, where people just burn through the content too quickly? Oh yeah,
I don't think there's a way to solve that, because I think no matter, even when I played MMOs back in the day, I remember people would hit level cap and they'd be like, now what? And it's like, you did that in 4 days, man. You gotta slow down, you know. Like they remind me of people that read books really fast, you know. Like a new Harry Potter book would come out, and I have friends like a day later, they're like, done. When's the next one? It's like, dude, this is a year of Harry's life. Just calm down, like, you know, like pace yourself. So I think that's inevitable, and I think it's not a question of like, again, can somebody home run it right out of the gate? It's, can they see what needs to happen? It's kind of like driving blind. It's like the car is going to hit something and you got to drive the other direction, or you know, try to correct in a way. That's really going to be the success of what it does, and not necessarily like how good it was when it first started.
I feel like we could spend an entire HOTTAKE talking about.
This wasn't an EA segment.
Right. What we want to see out of EA, and that could be very interesting. But let's move on to another company, a company that I think we're kind of high on at the moment, at least. Capcom. What do we want to see out of Capcom in 2019?
They're starting off really well.
Yeah, they are.
They're starting off with a winner. That definitely
Onimusha.
Onimusha, woo! But I mean, still, having two updated, you know, two reminders of franchises that they control that are worth exploring, you know, in the same month, I think is cool.
Yeah. Well, and they've also got the Monster Hunter expansion coming as well.
I think Monster Hunter is, going to be relevant every month of this year. That game's not going anywhere.
I wish, it is weird to me that Iceborne isn't until fall. That feels too long.
Sure.
Maybe it's just because I want it so bad, but it does feel, for an expansion, it feels like a pretty far distance.
How are their other updates going? I feel like I haven't heard anything on that front for a while. Like the regular events and all of that.
No, they're still updating it pretty regularly. They had like a winter festival in December. And then
they have that Witcher thing happening,
Yeah, I have not been checking in on it as regularly as I should be. They're still updating it. I feel like we haven't had something quite as huge as like the behemoth in Final Fantasy 14 in a good amount of time. But I still feel like there are reasons to check in, even if I'm not personally checking in. So I think they're going okay from my perspective. I think for me in Capcom, I want to see what's going on with fighting games in Capcom.
That's basically my limit, because I don't do my homework on that company, and I know a lot about the issues Street Fighter has had purely through you, and so it's that's all I can really think of that like they've done wrong.
But there's
like
so
Mega
much bad blood for both
Yeah.
Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom.
Like even Mega Man had a great year. It's like a lot of their franchises are doing very well right now.
Right. It is. You're right, Brandon. I feel like they're kind of reviving these classic beloved things so well, but Capcom, a huge part of it is their fighting games, and it's hard to get a sense of what the direction is.
Yeah.
Because like Marvel vs. Capcom, it just fell off a cliff. It's just like we're just not talking about this.
Right.
And Street Fighter V feels like it's kind of this one step forward, two steps back thing where it feels like the changes that it tries to make, it introduces new ways of frustrating people. And, on some level, I'm glad that they're continually trying new approaches and new methods, but it just doesn't seem to really sustain momentum in the way that you would hope.
Sure.
And so, I don't know what they're going to do. It feels way too early for another Street Fighter, but
yeah,
it feels way too early for anything. But I feel like they need some announcement, some huge victory, some rallying point for people with fighting games and Capcom. And I just don't know what that is.
Dumb question incoming. Is Capcom Dragon's Dogma?
Yes, it is.
Curious to see if something happens on that front.
They announced Dragon's Dogma. It's coming to Switch.
Well, I know, but I'm curious if that is an indication that something.
Yeah, and I think that was
happening.
actually my other thing that I want is it's like, hey, cool, you are remaking Resident Evil 2, you're making a new Devil May Cry game, you just made a new Mega Man game. What was so exciting about Dragon's Dogma is it felt so original.
Yeah.
And it would be exciting, I think, to have this new series or this new idea from Capcom that kind of felt as wild and crazy as Dragon's Dogma originally did. Or just a new Dragon's Dogma would be fine.
Right. I've had like 30 people in my life tell me to play Dragon's Dogma, and I've just ignored all of them. I've never, ever played it. So when that Switch thing was announced, it was like, I should just do this.
Brandon,
I would love it.
It can be really frustrating when people say this, but Dragon's Dogma does seem like a very you game.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that is right up my alley, but I never, just like Mass Effect, just never pulled the trigger.
You've never pulled the trigger on Mass Effect?
Dude, we've been through that.
Have we?
I've seen that Mass Effect
really?
several times.
No, but that really hit me, Brandon.
If I gotta save it and surprise you every 4 months,
okay.
I'll do it.
I must have just completely ejected that from my brain.
Played every Dragon Age game except the last one, but
I'm the opposite.
Or played 1 and 2, played Mass Effect 1 for 2.5 hours, I think, and that was it. And didn't think it was bad and stopped. It just never got around to it.
I really thought you had played all of them.
It's one of those franchises.
Blood, is there anything you want out of Capcom?
Nothing like particular that stands out. I think I mentioned this on another podcast, but even though I've never played it, I do think that it would be nice to see them do like a Breath of Fire, have that come back in some way or another.
I think it'd be really cool for them to bring back Dino Crisis just because I think there's so much that they could do with it. Yeah. I know, like, your Dino Crisis is like your jam.
Right.
You made us make dioramas about Dino Crisis. Was that me? Yeah. I think that was you.
Did I come up with?
I think you came up with the Dino Crisis thing.
Oh.
Someone will correct that.
There's a ton of things they could bring back. Like, it'd be cool if they brought back Power Stone. They kind of have... But I feel like this is not... I feel this is an opinion where you just inevitably frustrate people because people always want more. They always want new sequels or they want reboots or whatever it is. But I'm kind of happy that they're doing things like the Onimusha remaster, that they're bringing Dragon's Dogma on Switch, where... It's just part of me feels like it's this realistic compromise where it's like, hey, even if we don't get a new sequel, at least we're getting this.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I think you kind of have to be okay with that. Like, it's never bad wanting more, but like, I would rather have these re-releases and these remasters than not have them, for sure. Another company, kind of like EA, where I feel like there's a lot to unpack. I mean, it could be a whole HOTTAKE, is Activision Blizzard. Just because there are so many different parts to this.
Right.
And yeah, when I wrote down Activision Blizzard, I had that moment where I was like, yeah, I feel really weird about Blizzard in general right now. In a way that I don't know that I have before. Kind of like we were talking about with...
Well, now that Destiny is going away, Activision needs something. They need something big to be on their side. Yeah.
Blizzard is so weird, and I think about this every time BlizzCon comes around again, that like there's so many companies, just like we were saying with these other publishers, where like, yeah, there are franchises that they've done that they might revitalize or do a sequel later on or do a remaster and remind us of, or do like a card game or so, or you might see those characters come up in other games that they do, like Monster Hunter. And Blizzard's like one of the only companies I can think of that they're like, no, Blizzard is these properties. Right. It's like Disney almost, it's just like these are, when you think of Blizzard, think of this. I even saw somebody tweet their Christmas gift was like a statue that had like Diablo and StarCraft, and like all the logos were on the side, and you would spin it, and like they had their core tenets of the company like on the base of it. And so just this idea, it's interesting that they have BlizzCon and they're like, wow, like everyone's expectations for Diablo are so high, and it's like, well, you boot up Battle.net and it's right there. It's this franchise that never really goes away. Like you always want us to be thinking of, and so we're thinking of it. Like we're waiting for Diablo 4, and like in some ways I totally understand that, and the other way it's like, God, can't this company just take a break for a couple of years and just sunset a franchise and be like, we'll get back to it later, and so. In some ways, I think like people have really unrealistic expectations of Blizzard, and then at the same time, it's like you what's the saying? Like you built this boat, sail it, or I don't know. Like you put yourself in this situation because of how much you demand not only support but just this fervor, over the excitement of. They talk about the next BlizzCon and they have B-roll of all these people like in the cosplay, for the Horde, like they want their fans to be nuts, and then their fans get nuts, and then they hold on. Your expectations are out of control. It's like, make up your mind. Where do you want them to be? Yeah,
I feel like for some reason, I just feel like the entire public perception of Blizzard rests on this Diablo 4 announcement that I think is happening this year. Yeah. Just with everything they've been through, with what they went through with Diablo 3 initially, and then now what they're going through with Diablo Immortal, I feel like it's either a home run or nothing with Diablo 4.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing, and I don't necessarily think it's completely fair, but I feel like by and large that's how it's going to go. And that just feels like an almost impossible task.
We think about Capcom and RE2 Remake. It was something where it's like, well, this is going to happen, right? Like, we all kind of knew, but they hadn't really announced it yet. And they said in some interview that they were going to do it. And then they were like, maybe going to show a video, but that didn't happen. The anniversary came and went. Like, there's a lot of opportunities to be like, now? Oh. But when it didn't happen, it wasn't like, man, screw Capcom. It was just like, it'd be cool if it happened.
Well, because they didn't announce, like...
It's like a gift when we do get it. Whereas, like, Diablo 4 is not going to feel like a gift. It's going to feel like, finally, you paid rent, Blizzard. You know? Like, it's unfortunate. And again, I'm not saying the fans are wrong. It's just, it must suck to be at this company and be like, when we announce something new, it's like we finally caught up, and not that, like, look how ahead this franchise is. I'm playing Diablo 3 on Switch right now and having a grand time. Like it's fun to, absorb these franchises later on. One of my big issues, did you want to say something? I don't want to bring up another franchise.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably more versed on Activision side, but it's right now I'm not entirely sure what like the Activision direction is. Like we've got Call of Duty and they're doing these Spyro and Crash remakes, which, are doing really well, but also sort of feel like they're sort of, they're sort of putting those out there for the fans, but they don't have like that big Skylanders. Like I said, Destiny's going away, and then they've got Sekiro, and you're like, what? like as good and as big as Sekiro is going to be, it doesn't feel like the giant mass market Activision game at all.
But it does feel like a sure thing, and I think that is very important to them. And you mentioned the remakes, the Spyro and Crash remakes, and the upcoming Crash Team Racing remake. I think it's a guarantee that based on the success of those things, we're getting a new Crash game and a new Spyro game as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And so then I think once you have those announcements, the direction becomes a little bit clearer, right? Where you and maybe that'll be a path for more companies going forward, where you do the remake, the re-release, you test the waters, that gets crushed, then you announce the new game.
Yeah.
Like there's just kind of this 1-2 steps.
Wasn't there something in that either on Activision or Bungie's side in that letter talking about how Activision's wanting things that are theirs? Like, and that was one of the things is like, you know, Bungie still had like a lot of ownership in the Destiny IP, and so like,
yeah, they did say existing IP, so I don't know if that's just business speak or if like they really care about.
So that, but that's what I'm thinking is that like,
that
yeah, Activision is trying to get stuff that is like completely,
right,
you know, in-house develop. Well, I mean, not necessarily in-house developed, but completely like under their ownership.
But like expanding the Skylanders IP meant having a Netflix show, which is like, you know, I don't know if their plans are like that exciting in terms of like what we would normally like talk about and get excited.
Pretty sure James Hetfield did a voice on that Skylanders show.
What?
Yeah, I'd have to double check my facts, but I'm pretty sure that happened.
I watched that show.
Did you?
Yes.
Really?
Well, it was such a fun thing to put on in the background.
Okay.
And I'm like, I have to know what the heck's going on.
Yeah,
with this
I
show.
think
like,
he did.
There's not many video game shows that aren't already, you know, like make perfect sense. Like that was its own weird beast, and I was curious like how that was going to turn out. And Amanda's friends with Richard Horvitz, who does Invader Zim and the same exact voice. As much as I love him for he's right over there. What is his butt? The bald guy, the bad guy in Skylanders.
Brandon, I couldn't tell you the bad guy in Skylanders. Come on, man.
Terrible. It's terrible that gone. Totally escaped my brain. But
don't feel too bad. It's fine.
So when I remember he tweeted out he booked the gig, and I was like, oh, that's gotta feel good to get an animated show. But I just please want to bring up one last thing before we start talking about Blizzard.
No, please keep going.
This is a game I played so passionately a long time ago and then have stepped away from, and it will take a monumental effort to get me back into playing. But because of the unparalleled joy that I experienced playing Wrath of the Lich King, I care about World of Warcraft a lot. Like I not only poured a lot of my heart and soul and time, blood, sweat, and tears into leveling up through that game, but did it with friends that I'm still very, very close to that also don't play Warcraft anymore. And how that game ends is so important to me. Like I just kind of want to know that it's gonna sunset in a cool way.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need to know how it's going to, but that's just like a big fumble I think Blizzard could do is just kind of being like, yeah, it's over. You know, like I dread that announcement of them just like, oh, we're shutting down servers. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
No. When people talk about Activision creeping into Blizzard, like I think that's one of those things that makes me scared. Does Blizzard care? I don't know. Like, is that because I can't think of a franchise Blizzard's ended. You know, like usually they get maybe a year or two into development of a game, and then right when it gets past the concept stage, like Ghost or Warcraft Adventures, they're like, no, this is not even worth pursuing. Whereas like the whole other aspect of that, where it's like this game's been around for more than a decade. Now what do we do? You know, I would just love to see that be a big hurrah instead of just like, all right, we're done.
When that end inevitably happens, which it could be at any point, do you think you'll jump back in just to see it?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. Not only that, but like, you know, dust off some phone numbers and like, what's up, man? Like, I haven't talked to you in 8 years. Like, we're going back in.
Yeah, with World of Warcraft, I feel like I just kind of constantly have this question of where do you go from here? And I imagine they are constantly dealing with that. And it applies to Diablo as well, where I feel like I play a lot of games. And Brandon, I feel like you and I get into these conversations when we talk about stuff where it's like, if they did another one, here's what they should do, or here's clearly what they can fix. And with Diablo 4, I'm just kind of this blank slate. Like, what is the hook of Diablo 4? How are you evolving this? Like, what is the correct step? And people bring up Path of Exile a lot, and how much freedom you have in your customization of your characters. And it's like, well, do you take that approach? Like, I just don't know, because I do feel like with Diablo they want to appeal to as many people as possible, for better or for worse, and I think if a fundamental tenet of your game is how simple it is, and we're at the 4th iteration all of these years later, like what do you do? How do you make that exciting again? I don't know what immediately comes to mind. And they're digging themselves out of a hole, and so it's even harder. And like, maybe this is just on me. Maybe this is just where I'm at in my life, but I just don't feel as interested as I would like to be in the stuff that they already have going on. Like, I'm not, like, I miss Overwatch sometimes, but I'm not like jumping up and down to find that time to play it. Same with Hearthstone or Heroes of the Storm or StarCraft. Like, I don't know. I want to feel that, or World of Warcraft even. I want to feel that spark again, and maybe that's more on me than it is with Blizzard, but I hope they find something.
I did finish StarCraft last year, though. Finally played that 3rd chapter.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Congratulations.
Real good.
Yes.
If anyone put that off, don't do it. Definitely.
No,
get in there.
that's me. I've put that.
The
A
third
lot
one?
of start. No, like, I still need to, like, I've played a good chunk of Wings of Liberty, but I didn't even finish Wings of Liberty. Like, I need to finish Wings of Liberty, Heart of the Swarm. What's the last one called?
Legacy of the Void.
Legacy of the Void.
It
yeah.
wraps up.
Yeah, I need to do all of that,
Masterful.
but I haven't yet. Should be brought up, though, on a positive note. They are remaking Warcraft 3, and that's pretty cool. That just needs to be said. Like, we can't go through this whole conversation.
You're right. I'm ready.
Without
do it
bringing that up. All right, I don't think we're gonna have time to do
and
all
WoW
of them.
Classic, I'm very curious about.
Oh yes, another important component to bring up.
Probably play that dumb game, sure.
Yeah. We're not gonna be able to do all of these companies, but I think this is a fun one. Square Enix. What do we want to see out of Square Enix?
An Avengers game.
Yeah.
That's where you say Square Enix, the first thing I think of. What a weird.
That is the last thing I think of.
What a
That's
weird thing to do to step forward and it's weird because I think I brought up my concerns about that, and whenever I do, everyone's like, "Really, you don't think that's gonna be good?" It's like it's so weird. It's a weird developer to come out and do this Western, born franchise and characters and something that a lot of people are doing stuff with, and when you hear about those, they happen right away. And so it was just a weird time before we even got into the Infinity War madness to step forward and say, no, we are doing something that is specifically focusing on Avengers. It will have Captain America, it will have Iron Man, it will have Thor. Cool. And then just nothing at all. No other announcements.
Yeah, but that was
hard for me not to.
That was one of those, like, the second the ink is dried kind of trailers.
Sure.
Like,
those just don't make me happy. Those kind of announcements, that Elder Scrolls 6 logo did nothing for me. So like when we have those, is it 6? It's 6.
This is coming one day.
Yeah. So whereas with something like Bethesda, I'm not surprised that that's a long ways off. I'm not expecting Elder Scrolls news next week. Whereas with Avengers, it was just a weird. I don't know how to feel about that. End of story.
I think there are a lot of Square Enix things that I care deeply about, but if I had to boil it down to just one thing, I just want the saga of the Final Fantasy VII Remake to end. Like, you could tell me it's 2025 and I'd be fine with that, but sure. I just want to have something concrete. I just give me a firm update.
Yeah. Finally, my indifference of FF7 pays off. Like, I'm not that tied to it, I could just like, hey, take your time. Looks cool. But,
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe my own expectations and many people's expectations for Final Fantasy VII Remake are unrealistic, but I just want to know something. Just even if you just get out there and say, like, hey, listen, this is just happening on the new consoles. And maybe this is too optimistic, but I just have this sense that when PlayStation gets out there this year and starts talking about their new system, that will be part of it. That will be part to build the hype of that new machine. Of
course it will be.
Yeah.
Of course it will be.
I mean, that's what's going to happen, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Octopath is fun.
I think Octopath is actually a really good example of what Square Enix did right last year, and there's room for that to improve. And so I hope that they can identify those weak areas so that the strength of what was there can really shine in something that's a lot higher budget, and get some other team members in there to really make something that has a completely well-rounded experience that people will be just as excited for as we were when we first saw Octopath.
Yeah.
And I think the Octopath issues there's not like a mystery surrounding what
right.
could be improved with that game.
It kind of fits exactly what I was mentioning before, where it's like, we think about an Octopath Traveler 2, and it's like, oh, just do this, this, and this, and cool.
It seemed like
We're
when I
all
would
set.
read criticisms of Octopath, it's like the same type of argument again and again and again.
Right.
And so hopefully the team's like, got it.
Yep.
We know. It was a weird project. There were a lot of questions we had going into it, and so it's like, okay, this we did right. No need to, fix what ain't broke, and then we'll focus on that other stuff. Just Cause 4 was not good. And Just Cause seems like the kind of franchise where they're just gonna make another one, and I don't know if Just Cause spoilers are a thing, but the story is definitely like, see you in 5. I'm like, okay, but don't. But
I think that's
I would
less of
say
a Square
give it more
Enix
time
thing than an Avalanche thing. I think they've got too much on the.
Sure, but I wonder if Just Cause 4 is going to sell just enough. Like, it just seems like the issues with that seemed very obvious. Like, no one could play that game and say it's done. Like, that game's just not finished, and that's not a challenge. But so I'm just surprised if Square, and Avalanche were like, we know, but it's the bad reviews are not going to hurt sales. The audience is going to come out and support it, and we'll make Just Cause 5 just as unfinished as this one, and it's going to sell just enough, and we got what we expected. Who knows?
I think I have to bring up just Yoko Taro and Nier, because I feel like he is somebody who has kind of broken through in this way, where not only does he have all these great, crazy ideas, now he has a game that's sold well. And I think that is a very powerful combination, because he is just somebody that doesn't hold back. Like, he is not going to make the same game again and again. He is not going to fall into a Just Cause situation. Like, whatever it is, I strongly believe that it will just be wild. And maybe this is a weird thing to say, but that is how Final Fantasy used to feel to me. I used to get whiplash with how wild Final Fantasy felt with each new iteration. And I feel like with Yoko Taro, I kind of get that sensation. And I hope they can utilize that in a way that is both bigger and grander, but doesn't water down kind of the energy that he brings to that stuff, which I, of course, worry about. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it's exciting times ahead for that man. I think we should talk about Microsoft. And I think I want to say something out of the gate with Microsoft. I feel like a lot of people think that we're down on Microsoft, and I get why they say that. Sure. I do. I think you could definitely interpret some of our conversations that way, but I think that Microsoft is like putting all the right pieces in place. Like, yeah, they haven't capitalized on it yet. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say good job yet, but I think moving into the next generations, like, the moves that they're making seem pretty smart to me.
Yeah, the thing with Microsoft, I feel like so many of the moves they made last year just aren't going to pay off this year.
What moves specifically?
Like, in terms of like purchasing those developers.
Oh, sure.
Like, those, for the most part, are companies that have games that just came out, and so in terms of seeing something new, like Obsidian, like, their game that's still in the works is a multi-platform game, and so that's not really the thing. Like, I'm sure Microsoft is is going to show it off as much as they can, but at the same time, it's, that's not Microsoft's big Obsidian exclusive. So it's really interesting to me. I wonder if, and even Hellblade took a long time for Ninja Theory to put together. So I wouldn't see, maybe we would see a hint of what they're working on next, but I don't know that we would really get that game this year at all. So it's really tricky for me to think of what is going to be the big thing for Microsoft this year. It seems like Gears 5 will probably be it. And I think Halo is probably further off as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting because like you said, they've done a lot of great stuff on the consumer front, the business front. The Game Pass has been really great. The backwards compatibility has been really great, but it's in terms of building those big new franchises, which I think is their weak point, is just having franchises people can really get behind and be loyal to, and in the same way as Halo and Gears. What is, maybe Playground. There's been a lot of rumors about Playground working on something, whether that's Fable or something completely new.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen anything really official about that.
I could sink my teeth into a new Fable.
Brennan,
I'd be there day one.
Brennan, I think that is a totally reasonable thing, and I'm definitely not opposed to a new Fable, but I think for me, what would benefit Microsoft is if you're buying all of this talent and we're starting in a new generation, let's just build up new things. Mm-hmm. Let's just go nuts.
Oh yeah. I don't want any of those new teams working on Fable. Yeah,
right? Yeah, I just don't think,
sure.
unless it's absolutely crazy. I think we can even let some of that stuff go.
Sure.
I think we can let some of that stuff go.
I only bring it up because of just rumors.
Right. Right.
It's not something where I'm finally.
Yeah.
I was bummed when Legends.
Well, yeah, that's one of those things where when they were
Legends was weird, man.
It's a fun game.
That talk, with Phantom Dust coming back, Phantom Dust, is that a thing that needed to come back?
Right.
There are some of us that would, enjoy a Crimson Skies, as we were talking about Ace Combat earlier, but not necessarily a thing that needs to come back. So yeah, I think you're right. We need new things, because I think that's the thing, is that it feels like Microsoft is very much on a cycle a lot of times of Halo, Gears, and Forza, and so it's okay, what's going to come in and play nicely alongside of those.
And I think that cycle it wears on you even more when those things don't absolutely crush it, right? I don't think Halo 5 was the universal success they wanted it to be. I don't think Gears of War 4 in a broad sense was the universal success that they wanted it to be. And so if that is all you know about that's coming, I just don't think it excites you in the way that a big company like that would probably want it to. And I think about even something like Battletoads, which I want, and I've said multiple times that I want, and I still want. But taking a step back, it's how big could this possibly be? How?
Right.
Sure.
It'll be a cool, fun thing, but will it? I don't know. It almost feels limited by revisiting the well. Where I just feel like with all of this technology and new things, just Microsoft could earn a lot of goodwill by dumping money into new series, and as if they say these people that you love are making it. I think that's just a formula for instant hype with a lot of people. But yeah, the super expensive controller that they have is one of the best controllers I've ever used. Just saying, on the fringes, they're getting a lot of things absolutely right. Maybe let's do one more. Let's do Nintendo. Let's do Nintendo. What do we want to see out of Nintendo?
Small company.
Yeah.
Small lineup. Quick convo, I think.
Yeah.
I don't.
What do you want out of a Switch revision, Brandon?
I don't want a Switch revision.
You don't want a Switch
There's
revision?
nothing I can think of with the Switch.
There's nothing you can think of?
Really, no. Like, I missed Street Pass. That was a lot of fun. I'm bummed that there's not that, because that was like, didn't even matter what was in this console. I'm having fun with the console itself. That doesn't really exist with Switch anymore. Even like the online service, like I got that over the holidays because I was gonna play Pokemon with my godson, which was fun. Like 8-year-old, we had a Pokemon battle. He was talking smack online. We were on the cell phone, like playing.
Brandon, that sounds like the most wholesome experience you could have.
It was pretty great. He was, I whooped him, he whooped me. We had a good match. But I was like, oh yeah, I got access to all these NES games. And like, that was maybe about 20 minutes of fun for me. And then I'm like, okay. And yeah, obviously, like the screen can look better. The battery life can be longer.
I think the Joy-Cons could be way better.
The Joy-Cons certainly can be better. Stuff like Smash Brothers, I'm not even gonna bother with the Joy-Cons. So like there are something like Celeste. It's great. Like there are kind of simpler games. One thing that's really funny is I played a lot at night, and even just playing like Pokemon, going through the menus, like those are loud buttons. Like if you just have headphones on, like Amanda will be sleeping, and I'm just like click, 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 click. Sorry, so I'm trying to like I've mastered the art of like the silent Switch Joy-Con button press, but nothing really off the top of my head that's like broken about the Switch. Like it's just I still keep discovering things. I still keep playing games on Switch I wasn't expecting and enjoying. Even looking back this year on games I played on PS2, I'm thinking about Dragon Quest Builders 2 is a great example. On PS4. Probably gonna play Builders 2 on PS4, but like that being on Switch and Amanda having a copy too and us doing co-op, that sounds so great.
Yeah.
Because she loves that. She loves her Switch so much.
I feel like having played some Builders on Switch, I don't want to play it any other way. It's just so cozy. It's so cozy. I think kind of along the same lines as Microsoft, but a little bit different. I feel like Nintendo is bringing back things in a potentially exciting way, and some of those things still need to pan out. But new Metroid coming, Pokemon on Switch coming, Animal Crossing coming, like things, big tentpole things that I think we're all really excited about. I want something along the lines of a Splatoon or an ARMS. I feel like they've just done such a good job in those areas, these big new franchises, making them exciting, really getting out there, supporting them really well, generating a lot of excitement really well. I want like one, maybe two more of those. It'd be sick if one of those was an internal Nintendo RPG, but maybe that's just crazy talk.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting to see what it's like. Town.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Doesn't seem like that's going to be what you're describing. That seems kind of a fun experiment and maybe for like a kind of a niche crowd.
I feel like I just don't know enough about Town to really generate feelings on it, I suppose. But
just very little dissatisfied me with the Switch.
Do you care
the
about
software available on it, the way it functions?
Do you care about the online service at all?
No, not really.
Okay. So good or bad, it doesn't really affect you too much.
On paper, I'm sure I could drum up some frustration about like how they've
but
gone
just
about
not
it.
affecting you.
But in my personal,
the
way I process the console, it hasn't really come up.
Blood, you're a Nintendo fan.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want?
It's hard because like there's a lot of that stuff that feels obvious. I definitely want them to continue doing new IP, like you said. I definitely think that it's time to show whatever the heck Metroid Prime 4 is. I think, one of the things we talked about going into the Switch was this idea that there would be a lot more from the teams that were working on 3DS games. And 3DS success continued, so they kept putting out 3DS games. And now it really does feel like it's whittling down bit by bit. We've got Mario and Luigi on 3DS and Kirby's Epic Yarn on 3DS, but it's getting to be stuff that's it's like those are not a high effort. So I'm very curious to see what all those teams that were making weird little 3DS games, like what kind of things that not necessarily like big franchises, but just like weird one-offs, things like why can't I remember it now? The little the co-op game that we all played at launch, Sniffer Clips.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
You know, like Nintendogs, Electroplankton. There's like these fun, like the little creative things that are they're going to, you know, keep new stuff coming into the library, and not necessarily have to be, you know, the big giant budget,
Right.
But you know, something that's worthwhile, that's worth talking about, that's worth like, you know, getting your friends' attention, and you know, making making Nintendo's library fleshed out for more than just the next Mario Kart and the next Zelda and all of that.
Sure.
That we expect to come down the
The
line.
long-awaited sequel to 1-2 Switch. No?
Brandon,
Well, they kind of need that, but yeah.
it took me a second to be like 1-2 Switch. Oh right, that thing. You know.
But that's usually, compared to their other consoles, that's you know, Wii Sports. That's the one, the showpiece. And it was interesting that the Switch was really successful, but that game was instantly forgettable.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like
I definitely feel like in the Wii and even maybe the Wii U era, things that they're okay with letting things go a little bit more easily. You know, I remember what was that like? It wasn't Wii Play, but it was like this Wii Me Party. Yeah, like that felt like, okay, the world doesn't need this right now. Like
Right.
you've missed this boat, and I feel like they're doing a better job of recognizing that maybe a little bit more quickly. Oh, I want a Super Mario Odyssey 2. I want it in the same way of like a Galaxy 2, where you're obviously just capitalizing on the same ideas, but it's just more worlds, maybe some new mechanics here and there. But I don't know. I think it's okay for Nintendo to iterate on that stuff a little bit faster.
Hard
It
to
doesn't
argue with that.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have to completely reinvent the wheel
Yeah.
to get more of this mainline thing out. So I'd be way into that. Are we ready for some emails?
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready for some emails? Our first email comes in from Jared. He asks, "Hello, Ben and Allies. Happy New Year to you all. With the upcoming launch of games like Kingdom Hearts 3 and Resident Evil 2 Remake, I wanted to ask the panel what, outside of these games, has been the most excruciatingly difficult game to wait for? Whether it's because the game kept getting delayed or a sequel just took forever to materialize, what games top the list for you? For me, Breath of the Wild, BioShock Infinite, and Metroid Prime 4 instantly come to mind."
Hard weights.
Dreams.
Brandon's got one right out there.
That is a
Yeah.
Brandon Jones answer.
Dream. Yeah, the beta is going on right now. People keep sending me emails. They're going to send out codes tomorrow. Like, just quiet. I'm just, if I check my email, I got a code, great. But I'm not going to, like, it's almost 1 p.m., you know? Like, I'm tired.
The Metal Gear Solid 4 trailer that they showed was excruciating because it was really long and it was amazing. One of the best trailers I've ever seen. And then it was just like nothing for years. And so that was really rough. Final Fantasy 13 was a similar situation. What else was excruciating, though? Persona 5 was excruciating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess right now...
And Builders 2 is killing me. I can play
Yeah.
that, right? Especially because it's available in another language.
Yeah. But I take comfort in the fact that, like, we know for sure it's coming.
Yeah.
You know, that's enough. Final Fantasy 7 Remake.
This gen. Even Red Dead, I was like, oh, in good time. It's fine. I'm excited.
Really?
I'm excited about it, but there was not that much time from when they announced it to when it came out. So,
I think the wait for Animal Crossing has been a little excruciating.
yeah.
It's felt a little long.
I'm not really sure what I'm waiting for. You know, I think
Right.
that's
Right.
kind of the issue
Yeah.
that I have now, where it's like I'm keeping that excitement locked away until you know we see a concept or something, some kind of idea. Then I'll
Sure.
I'll start freaking.
I don't know why it's taken so long to put Metal Wolf Chaos on PC. And I'm not trying to slam the good people making that happen, but Why? Why is it taking so long?
You know what game this year that I would go to bed thinking about in the days leading up to when I got it, that I would like text you and be like, got the code, Spider-Man. I was like,
yeah.
And it was fun. It was really just the last month. Like everything leading up to it, I'm like, this is great. What are we, like E3 would come and I'm like, I hope we see Spider-Man because that would be fun. But those last 2 weeks sucked. They were really, really hard.
Blood,
not a lot going on at the end of August for me, and like,
Blood has to deal with that pretty periodically.
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's like every once in a while, an ally will just be like, "Where is it?"
yeah.
Blood is the keeper of those emotions. I feel like. Any excruciating waits for you?
It's just one of those things where like I would probably look at my shelf and it's like that's the one or whatever release list, and I'm totally blanking on it right now.
Well, that's good.
It's typically, yeah. I mean,
You've gotten over it.
Zelda was definitely, Breath of the Wild was definitely one of the bigger ones.
I really thought Nintendo was going to localize Mother 3 like 3 or 4 years ago. I thought that was going to happen.
But it's a good meme now. They can't.
Yeah.
They'll ruin the meme.
I mean, I still got to finish Earthbound, play Mother 1, and then do the fan translation of 3. So I've got plenty to play. I just really thought it was going to happen by now. That's what I'm saying. I was convinced that after Earthbound Beginnings, it was like, this is a sign.
Right.
Nope. Next email comes in from Brandon. He says, "Hello, everybody. Recently, I've come across various videos and content where the term influential was being used as a talking point. If not an outright focus of said content, it was then I realized to say a game is or was influential has become extremely common as a defense or topic of conversation when discussing games that stand the test of time. So I wanted to ask you, whenever you discuss a game being influential, from what perspective do you come from? Cultural impact, gameplay mechanics, storytelling tropes, something else entirely? Thanks for taking my question, if you do, and stay easy, fellow allies."
This is something that I like because from working on a lot of retrospectives, I think it's an easy way to like make a retro interesting and worthwhile for someone to watch, even if they have, seem to know everything about the series. And that's when you like look at the year something came out, and then it was really fun when I did the Metal Gear retro and Metal Gear 1 when that came out on the MSX. It was fun to like look at every other game that came out this year, and it was all like action games. It was all just run, shoot. So like the idea of stealth was crazy like that year. We think about stealth now and it's got its own wonderful universe in gaming, but it's really fun to look back and like these threads between games, like just modes, just the cover system being in Kill Switch, and then Gears picking that up. Like some of those I remember, but like I always appreciate when somebody will point out, especially in the early PC era, because I missed that entirely. Like PC gaming in the 80s, like it was like Indiana Jones, The Fate of Atlantis. That was it. Like there were really like select games that like I made a point to go to a friend's house and experience. But like Maniac Mansion, like pretty much it, like adventure games. And so it's really cool. Like that's what I love. When I think of those types of connections, I think of Ryan Stevens. Like he was always the king, and Miguel and Justin. But like Ryan is just this endless, font of knowledge of being like, well, yeah, they took that, style of gameplay or that one little mode that originally, and it's always some game you never heard of that was really, did something, didn't sell a lot, but did something very influential because other series, whether they knew they were doing it or not, looked at it and remembered it, and brought that into, like I said with Breath of the Wild and Odyssey, like you can see the footprints, and it's cool drawing attention to that because I think a lot of that is there's no website dedicated to it, there's no channel that just focuses on it. Did you know gaming maybe but it's neat when those things come up and you're like, oh, it was right in front of me the whole time. I never really noticed that that was the first.
It's one of those things that's kind of influence is it's a bizarre thing because it is sometimes hard to pinpoint, to like put a real paper trail down, but then it's also unmistakable at the same time. Like I remember when I was in college, I decided to do this term paper on like how influential Jimi Hendrix was. Yeah. And good luck like finding like stuff written down about that, but just listen to music afterwards, Yeah. It's like it's right there, like all the feedback and everything, and the way people approached playing guitar was so different. And I think that's that's kind of the same thing. You talk about the footprints and you talk about You know, like people talking about Dark Souls constantly when describing their games, or you just even look at something as like, okay, well, there's a stamina bar, or there's like, you know, something getting left behind when you get killed, and you know, you talk about, you know, like Gears and Kill Switch, and the amount of like after Gears particularly, because I think that's one of those weird things too, where it's like, okay, well, Kill Switch did it first. But it kind of didn't matter because the idea before Gears of War was that a third-person shooter was stupid and was going to feel bad. And then all of a sudden we saw all these clones, right? We saw all these games that were trying to be third-person shooters. And at some point that shook out and it just became, you know, sometimes you can do it and you can do it well. And then, you know, things like, you know, Zelda and that like lock-on camera system is like, oh, yeah, this is how we do this. You know? This works. Even though now you don't do that much. You know, like you lock on in Dark Souls, but some people won't even do that. So
I get bothered, I think, when people use influence as an end-all be-all. Like, I think pioneering something is obviously very important and is absolutely worthy of respect, but I think the true just like pinnacle of anything is not only when you can pioneer something, but you also serve as kind of like an ironclad example of that thing.
Yeah.
Like Mario 64 is a remarkable game for being such an early 3D platformer, but you can play it now and it's still excellent. Yeah. And it's not just because it is a 3D platformer. It's because it has this foundation propping it up. It's because it has a great style to it. It has a great design around it. It has really fun objectives to chase after that are still enjoyable to this day. Like it just has so many things propping it up that it being an early 3D platform is just one aspect of it, I feel like. And so that is really important. I think that comes through, hopefully, in our Hall of Greats discussions. I don't think we ever let anybody slide by with it being just like, it was pioneering or it was influential. I think there has to be kind of something deeper underpinning that with Hall of Greats, which is happening on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
I'm not ready. You know?
Oh, yeah, I know.
You know?
I know.
Are you going to... Never mind. I'm not going to ask a question. I'm not going to ruin it.
I haven't even picked one. I
haven't even picked one either.
I'll give you one little tease, Ben. It's a good game.
It's a good game.
Brandon, I kind of want you to bring back World of Warcraft. I kind of want you to bring back.
It kind of makes me want to bring a bad game now. I want to see how that plays.
Maybe one of these days.
Maybe
it's just not in a good state. You think about World of Warcraft,
sure.
And it doesn't.
You want to be there when
it's weird. Like WoW has nostalgia and not because it's still around. Like I could play WoW tonight, you know, and like you know, do my dailies and level up and go raid.
I think a good time to bring it back would maybe be WoW Classic.
All right. No one's gonna force me to do a Hall of Great. Never ever. I'm gonna speak from my gut.
Brandon, you don't have to answer this question. How old is the game you're bringing?
Not answering that question.
Okay.
Nah.
That's definitely what I want to answer.
Okay.
Nah.
Our last email comes in from Calvin. It has a great subject. Yakuza tells a great story. Hello. When talking about how great Yakuza is, I feel like people often focus on the over-the-top violence, the great comedy of the side stories, and the amazing world you get to explore, and they are all factors that make it a series worth getting invested in. One of the things that I think is sometimes overlooked, not by the Allies, of course, is how amazing the stories are that they tell. Using Yakuza Kiwami 2 as an example, it's a love story, a revenge story, and a story about family history that is done so well that it had me weeping at the end. I feel the same goes also for Dark Souls, a great story that is rarely advertised, and most people will say it just does not have one. My question is, what are some games that you feel like get overlooked when it comes to story? Also, if you are cheeky, you could talk about how great Yakuza is more, because I will never get tired of you guys talking about it. We do that quite a bit, but I think the heart of this question is really good. Games where you like didn't expect them to have a good story, or feel like they don't get enough credit for their storytelling. It's a tough question.
I got one. I don't know. It doesn't like keep me up at night. I don't know if like grudges against it, but I don't know if you want.
No, I don't have one.
First.
Yeah.
I've always been surprised. It's something I've had to come to terms with over the years, where every single time there's a the majority of people I speak to about Grand Theft Auto were like, yeah, I played the campaign for an hour and I bailed. I'm like, it was that boring? Really? Mm-hmm. Like, you stole a car and crashed in this thing, and this thing blew up, and this guy freaked out, and you had this weird character, and you bailed? Like, all right. Like, I'll play single-player games where I'm just like, it takes forever for that to really get going. I've just been so amused by each of those campaigns, and especially they wrap up in such fun ways. And, like, turn the AI against you, like, put you in scenarios where you have to fight out of these situations that you'll never, even if you do the craziest kind of stunts on your own, like make your own kind of chaos on the map, you'll never recreate something like that. Even if you get 5 stars and are, all the tanks and helicopters or something are going after you. And it just always had the right attitude for me. I always thought it was interesting. A lot of people hate 4, and I thought 4 was so interesting just in terms of his relationship.
In terms of storytelling?
Yeah.
Man.
In terms of Nico's attitude, and people hate 4. Like,
I mean, I think Nico is one of, if not the best aspect of 4 to me.
And I think it's like one of my favorite parts in replaying 4 when I did it for the retro was there's a character in 4 that double crosses you, and it was neat that like they would call me on the phone and I would just be like, click. Nope. Like, not falling for that this time. So it was neat, like really getting into the lifestyle of these characters, and I'm not saying like compared to people who make adventure games, to the work that Telltale did, to something Persona that really has, flawed characters that are dealing with very, very what's what I'm looking for, like relatable issues. Like, not a lot relatable about like these scumbags that are in GTA, but what people wanted out of it from the complaints that I hear was always a surprise to me. It was always like, oh, I wasn't expecting Rockstar to do that. It's interesting that I think Red Dead's a big turn for them. I think they were very, very, it was like, we really want to make this a story that's believable, that, make you really feel for these people and not want things to go south. But that's all I have to say about that, because it's dumb GTA. It's not.
No.
Especially
I
GTA
think,
Online.
I think you're definitely onto something.
Story has never been a focus with online. It's not what people work for. So.
Maybe this is cheating a little bit, because I often don't think the actual plots themselves are that good, but I don't think Resident Evil gets enough credit for its storytelling. And what I mean by that is, I do think Resident Evil does a good job of making you care about its central characters. Like, I just feel like I've come to know Leon and Claire and Barry and Chris. They spend time with those people. And I also think they spend a lot of time with the villains. And so even just most recently, Resident Evil 7, like, I really cared about the Bakers a lot.
My goodness, yeah. Really good call. Yeah.
There where you start on your journey and where you end up with the Bakers and what you learn about them is pretty gut-wrenching in a lot of ways. And like, I don't know, I sometimes I think people only play Resident Evil for its survival aspects or for the fact that it'll spook them, but I think it does a lot better with its world building than people give it credit for.
I think RE7 does a great job of upending a lot of just classic horror conventions.
Sure.
Primarily in cinema. It's like, you're like, oh, Texas Chainsaw, got it. I totally had that mindset going in. Then you're like, wait, no. They thought I would think that, and they intentionally flipped the table a little bit. Fun.
I feel like there are always things about Resident Evil stories that drive me insane, but that doesn't take away from the good things that they do.
It is a weird series. I think one of the things, hyping up to RE2 and rewatching these trailers, and the one thing that always fascinates me about Resident Evil is we never got 2 iterations of the same looking character ever. Like, every single time we got a new Resident Evil, it's like, and Chris looks like this now. And you're like, whoa, all right. And even like going back to RE2, like looking at Leon in the trailers, like, this is just a brand new Leon. I can see this Leon in the remake growing up to be RE4 Leon, I guess.
Sure.
Like, there's a little bit of that style there. He's very confident in RE4, where he's very green in RE2, but it's just funny that, like, I can't think of a franchise where like they constantly reinvent the style of of a kind of generic dude. Like Chris Redfield's pretty generic when it comes to protagonists, and there's like 8 versions of him. It's interesting, like. Even like Marvel vs. Capcom, it's like, who's this guy? It's like a whole new dude.
Yeah.
But still love it.
Is Leon your favorite of the RE protagonists?
I probably, just because my love of RE started with the very first one, I still love Chris a lot, And even just the live action dude with the cigarette, the character intros.
I just think
Rebecca
Jill
Chambers,
is
I'm
so.
sorry, is the best. There's no question.
I just think Jill is so badass.
Yeah.
I like a lot of Resident Evil protagonists, but if I had to pick one, I think I'd do Jill Valentine. I just really the thing that drives me insane is I hate what they did with her in 5. Not a fan.
Sure. Yeah.
At all. But yeah. Blood, are there any games that don't get enough credit for story stuff?
The Witcher.
Definitely wasn't in mind at all. Now I'm having a hard time coming up with one. I'm just looking all over the room like, what is it? What is it?
He doesn't waste his time with that nonsense.
No, I just have a hard time whenever the blank questions in like my mind's trying to sift through hundreds of games. I'm like, I'm bad.
I know.
Bad at that kind of thing.
I know. Blood, I feel like this is an email, and
That is an
usually
email.
there's always one email or something. Every time I shoot Frame Trap, when we get done, I have like an hour drive home.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Coulda, woulda, coulda,
yeah. I just get to think about all the things I wish I would have done on Frame Trap, and boy, there's usually a lot.
You know what's funny, man? Like, and that's kudos to you actually for the way this show is structured. It's like if last minute, Damiani's like, hey, somebody dropped out, can you be on friend code? I'd be like, sure. Like I might not have a lot to say, and like I'm on the Easy A podcast every week, and so I need to know what the bet is, and then that's it. Whereas like you have to be on Frame Trap, and it's like, am I ready for Frame Trap?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just
am I-
want to do
more of a
that.
commitment for sure.
Am I worthy of Frame Trap?
I was like
right now?
going through the list of like, all right, what codes haven't been claimed? Is there anything more recent
You gotta
that's
show up for this
Yeah.
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
You gotta eat a meal.
Yeah. It's hard for me because I always want to. Like, in a perfect world, I want to show up to Frame Trap, and it's like, I beat these 10 games. But it's always like, well, I finished this game, and I'm just getting started with this one. And it's like, that's just where I am. Yeah. But I think there's a beauty in that. I think that's something that's nice about Frame Trap, where, like, other stuff that we do, it's like, okay, here is our complete thoughts.
Right.
I also think it's so valuable to have, here is our thoughts at the moment.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and like I wanted to squeeze Mutant in there sometime too, and that still hasn't happened yet.
there's always another Frame
I
Trap.
just think of Biomutant every time somebody says Mutant.
Dude, let's not forget Biomutant. Like, let's hold Biomutant in our hearts.
Yeah.
I believe in that game. I really do.
It's gonna be a dope 7.5. It's really gonna be good. It's gonna be a 7.5 that's
maybe.
hard to put down with a lot of character.
I hope you write that review.
Yeah.
You probably
hopefully
will.
I'm on deck.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for it.
If you want to send an email into this podcast, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Thank you for showing up, for being prepared, Brandon Jones and Daniel Bloodworth. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Once again, I always feel like we should say it twice because sometimes it doesn't come across clearly. The email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more Frame Trap, more impressions.
On a new set.
On a new set. That should be said. That should be said. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Okay. Man, I got to find some way to... We got to do something. I don't know what it's going to be, but
my
new
garage.
set. Until next time.